The afternoon was already loud.
What is that
A
thing?
row of police vans blocked one end of the street.
Coming right for us.
People stood behind metal rails with signs. Some signs said, "Mutants are people." Other signs said, "Mutants are a threat." Cameras were everywhere. Drones buzzed above the crowd like flies. Aurora Monroe watched it from a rooftop 2 blocks away. Her hair moved in the wind. She did not make that wind. It was just the city breathing between tall buildings. Her eyes tracked the faces below. Angry, afraid, tired. Then the air split. It was not a lightning bolt. It was not a portal like a doorway. It was a tear, like the world made a mistake and tried to rip the mistake open wider. A red blur fell out of it. The man hit the street hard enough to shake the windows. Asphalt cracked. A parked car bounced and slammed into another car. Screams shot through the crowd. The man stood up like the fall did not hurt. Dust slid off his shoulders. A cape hung behind him, torn at the bottom, dark at the edges like it had been burned. His head turned once, then twice, fast, not panicked, searching. He looked at the police line. He looked at the crowd. He looked at the drones. His eyes were sharp and cold, like he was counting risks in his head. A bus lurched at the intersection. The driver had slammed the brakes too late. The front wheels lifted. The bus began to tip toward the crowd. The caped man moved. He did not run. He did not even look like he tried. He was there, under the bus, with one arm up. The bus stopped in midair. People froze. For 1 second, the street went silent, like everyone forgot how to breathe. He lowered the bus carefully, like it was a box made of glass. He set it down with the wheels straight. He nodded once at the driver through the windshield. The driver stared back, mouth open. Then the panic came back twice as loud. "Gun!" someone shouted. Officers raised rifles. A few of them had special gear. That meant someone expected trouble today. Aurora's jaw tightened. A man in a black jacket pushed through the crowd. He had a small device in his hand. He clicked it. A harsh sound blasted out, high and sharp. People grabbed their ears and fell to their knees. The caped man flinched for the first time. His hands went to the sides of his head. His eyes squeezed shut. The sound was not just loud, it was aimed. Aurora's eyes narrowed. "Sonic," she whispered. "Targeted." The caped man forced his eyes open. He looked at the man with the device. His face changed. Not anger like a tantrum. Anger like a decision. He was gone. The sonic device shattered in the attacker's hand. The attacker screamed, then stopped screaming when the caped man caught his wrist and held him still. The caped man did not punch him. He did not break his arm. He twisted the device away, crushed it into scraps, and dropped the metal pieces onto the street. "Back," the caped man said. His voice carried through the noise without shouting. "Everyone back." He sounded like someone used to being obeyed. An officer fired. The bullet hit the caped man's chest and fell to the ground like a pebble. The officer's hands shook. His partner's finger tightened on the trigger. Aurora did not wait. She jumped from the roof. Wind pushed her forward. She landed between the police line and the crowd. Her feet touched down softly, but the air behind her surged and forced people backward. "Stop!" she called. "Everyone, stop!" A man with claws stepped out of the shadows beside her, like he had been there the whole time. Logan's eyes were narrowed. His face was set in a hard line. The caped man looked at them both. Aurora felt it in her chest, the pressure, the sense that something huge had arrived, and the city did not know what it was holding. Logan took one step forward. "You lost, bub?" he asked. The caped man's gaze flicked to Logan's hands, to the claws. His eyes did not widen. He did not look surprised. He looked ready. "I'm not here to hurt anyone," the caped man said. Logan snorted. "Everybody says that." A drone camera swooped lower, its lens focused on the caped man's face. A mechanical voice crackled from the drone's speaker. Flat. Cold. Anomaly detected. Aurora's head snapped up. That was not a news drone. That was not a police drone. Metal shifted under the street. The asphalt split open. A thick, armored shape rose like a machine climbing out of a pit. Tall, heavy, purple and gray. A face that was not a face. A symbol on its chest that Aurora knew too well. A sentinel. Its head turned, scanning. It locked onto Aurora. Then Logan. Then the crowd. Then the caped man. Priority update, the sentinel said. Unknown threat added. The caped man's cape lifted in the wind. He stared at the sentinel like he was looking at an old enemy wearing a new mask. He stepped forward. Logan's claws slid out with a snick that made people jump. Aurora lifted her hands. The air above the street thickened, heavy with charge. The sentinel raised its arm. A cannon opened like a flower made of metal. The caped man spoke again, softer this time. Not to the sentinel. To himself. Not again. And the metal arm fired. Scott Summers arrived to chaos. From above, the street looked like a cracked scar in the middle of the city. People ran. Cars were shoved sideways. Police lights flashed in the smoke. He landed on a rooftop across the block and lifted his visor slightly, just enough to see clearly. His eyes tracked targets, angles, exits. He counted teammates in seconds. Storm was there, holding a wind wall between civilians and the fight. Wolverine was there, small compared to the machine, but fearless, slashing at a sentinel ankle joint to keep it from stepping forward. And at the center, there was the unknown. The caped man stood in front of the sentinel's blast like a shield. The beam hit him in the chest. Scott expected fire, an explosion, a body thrown backward. Instead, the caped man took one step back. His boots dug into the street. Smoke curled around him. His cape fluttered, singed at the edges. He lowered his arms. He was still standing. Scott felt a tight knot form in his stomach. This was not a normal mutant. This was not even a normal alien, if the stories Scott had heard were real. "Gene," Scott said into the comm, voice steady. "I need eyes on that man." John's voice came back calm, but Scott heard the edge. "I'm here. I'm trying. There's a lot of noise." Scott didn't like that. Jane almost never said she couldn't read something. The sentinel swung an arm down at Wolverine. The caped man moved again, fast, clean. He caught the sentinel's wrist in mid-swing. Metal screamed. The sentinel's arm stopped like it had hit a wall. The caped man's face stayed controlled. His eyes stayed on civilians first, on Storm's barrier, on the people crouched behind a car. Then he pushed. The sentinel stumbled backward. Its feet tore chunks from the street. Scott's mouth went dry. That much force, that fast, with that calm face. The caped man rose into the air, straight up, no strain. He hovered at the sentinel's eye level. His voice did not shake. "Stand down," he said. The sentinel answered with a second blast. The caped man turned his head slightly. The beam passed his shoulder and carved a clean line into a building wall behind him. Scott swore under his breath. He dodged that like it was slow. Storm shouted, "No casualties, keep them moving." Wolverine leaped, claws digging into the sentinel's thigh plating. He ripped at wires. Sparks flew. The caped man's eyes flashed red. A thin line of heat cut across the sentinel's cannon. Not a wide blast, not a fiery wave, a precise slice. The cannon fell off and clanged onto the street. Scott felt a strange mix of relief and fear. The man could control his power. That meant he was skilled. That also meant he could choose to do much worse. The sentinel's head tilted. It stopped firing. Instead, it opened panels along its chest and shoulders. Tiny lights blinked like cameras. "Data acquisition," it said. Scott's heart dropped. It wasn't trying to win. It was trying to learn. The caped man lunged forward to rip the head off. and the sentinel dropped straight down through the hole it came from. The street folded closed behind it like an elevator shutting. Silence hit hard. Smoke drifted. Sirens wailed in the distance. The caped man landed lightly on the broken asphalt. He looked at the closed street like he wanted to smash it open and keep going. Aurora stepped closer first. She kept her hands open. Not a threat. Not a welcome either. "You saved people," she said. He nodded once. "That's the point." Logan walked up, claws still out. "You got a name, Cape?" The caped man looked at him for a long moment. Then he answered, carefully. "Cal." Scott watched that choice. First name only. No origin. No symbol. Cal looked past them, past the smoke, to the crowd still staring. Some were filming. Some were crying. Some were pointing at Aurora like she caused this. Cal's face tightened. "You shouldn't be out here," he said to Aurora and Logan, like he was giving an order. Aurora's eyes narrowed. "This is our city." Cal's gaze snapped to her. For 1 second, the calm cracked, and something heavy showed through. "I've seen what a city looks like after you hesitate," he said. Scott stepped in before the tension could turn into a fight. He let his voice go steady and firm, the tone he used on new recruits. "Cal," Scott said, "we're taking you somewhere safe, somewhere we can talk." Cal looked at Scott's visor. He looked at the X-Men insignia. He looked at the civilians again. Then he nodded. Slow. "Fine," he said. "But if another one of those machines shows up, I'm not asking." Logan muttered, "Yeah, we noticed." Aurora lifted a hand. Wind swirled around them, hiding them from cameras for just a moment. Scott spoke into the comm again. "Everyone, move, now." And above the clouds, far out of sight, a different kind of sensor listened to the ripple Cal's arrival made. In a clean white room filled with screens, Hank McCoy stared at the readings coming in from the field team. "Impossible," Beast whispered. Across the ocean, in a private lab lit by soft red lights, a man with a perfect smile paused as his instruments chirped. Mr. Sinister leaned forward, delighted. "Now that," he said, "is new." The school looked peaceful from the outside. That was always the trick. Cal hovered above the front lawn for half a second, as if checking for hidden weapons. Then he landed. Scott noticed the small things. Cal didn't stomp the ground. He didn't flex. He didn't show off. He moved like a soldier entering a base. A man in a wheelchair waited at the front doors, calm as if he was greeting a new student on the first day. Professor Charles Xavier smiled gently. "Hello, I'm Charles Xavier." Cal studied him, eyes sharp. Xavier didn't flinch. "You're welcome here," he continued, "as long as you mean no harm." Cal's jaw tightened. "I mean to prevent harm." Xavier nodded, like he understood the difference between those sentences. "Then we should speak." Inside, the hallways were clean and warm. Photos of students, art on the walls. A smell like paper and old books. Cal glanced at it like it hurt. Scott walked at his side. He kept 2 steps of distance, close enough to talk, far enough to react. "Rules," Scott said. Cal's head tilted a fraction. "Rules?" "Yes," Scott said. "Simple ones. Don't threaten students. Don't enter rooms that aren't yours. Don't use powers on people without consent." Cal's eyes narrowed at the last word. Consent. "It matters here," Scott said. Cal looked like he wanted to argue. Then he looked down a hallway and saw a kid peek out from a doorway, eyes wide. Cal's voice softened, just a little. "Fine." They reached a room that looked like a small meeting space. A table, chairs, a tray with water, a stack of clipboards. Cal stared at the clipboards. Hank McCoy walked in, lab coat neat, glasses perched on his nose. He held a pen like a weapon of kindness. "Welcome," Beast said, polite and bright. "Before we begin, a few forms." Logan laughed once, short and rough. "Knew it." Beast slid the top sheet across the table. Visitor badge, non-disclosure agreement, and a waiver for the danger room. Cal blinked. A waiver. Yes, Beast said. It says you won't sue us if our training simulator accidentally throws a robot at you. Cal looked at Scott like Scott was joking. Scott did not smile. Sign it. Cal stared at the paper. His fingers moved so carefully it looked strange coming from someone who could lift a bus. He signed with a name that was clean and simple. Cal. Beast's eyes flicked to it. He didn't comment. Yet. Xavier rolled in quietly. Thank you for coming with them, he said. Cal didn't sit. He stood behind the chair, hands clasped behind his back. A soldier waiting for an interview. Xavier gestured toward the chair anyway. You can be at ease. Cal's eyes flashed with something bitter. I can't. That sentence hit the room like a cold wind. Scott watched Xavier's face. No surprise, no fear, just patience. We found you in the middle of a protest, Xavier said, and a sentinel came for our people. We need to know why you appeared and what you want. Cal's gaze moved to Aurora, then Logan, then Scott, then back to Xavier. He chose his words like he was stepping around broken glass. I didn't choose to come here, Cal said. Something tore. I fell through. And your world? Xavier asked. Cal's throat moved, swallowing something bigger than words. Different, Cal said. Worse. Then, quiet. Scott didn't like that. Quiet could mean controlled. Quiet could mean dead. Beast cleared his throat. If you allow it, I would like to take a few readings. Non-invasive. Temperature, radiation, cellular markers. Simple science. Cal's eyes narrowed. You're going to poke me. No poking, Beast promised quickly. Mostly scanning. Cal looked at the clipboards again, as if this place attacked with paper instead of bullets. Xavier held up a hand. Only if you consent. That word again. Cal let out a slow breath. Do it. Beast moved fast, excited. He brought in a handheld scanner and swept it around Cal's torso and arms. The device beeped, then beeped again, then beeped in a way that made Beast stop. Well, Beast said softly, that is extraordinary. Logan leaned on the wall. He's saying you're a freak, bub. Beast shot Logan a look. I'm saying he's not a mutant in any known sense. Cal's eyes sharpened. Not a mutant. Scott felt the shift. Cal was mapping the politics already. Aurora spoke carefully. Here, being a mutant is dangerous. Cal's face hardened. I noticed. Xavier's voice stayed gentle. We protect those who are feared. That is why we are here. Cal looked at Xavier. You protect them by asking nicely? Aurora's eyes flashed. We protect them by choosing not to become the monsters they call us. Cal's mouth tightened. He didn't argue right away. That meant he was listening, but fighting inside his head. Scott stepped in. We don't know who you are, Cal, but we know what the world will do when it sees power it can't control. It will panic. It will build bigger weapons. Cal's eyes flicked to the window, toward the world outside. Then stop them. Scott held his ground. We try, every day. Cal turned back. Try harder. Logan pushed off the wall. Hey, that's not how this works. Cal's gaze snapped to Logan. The air felt heavy for a second, like the room remembered that he could crush it. Then Cal's eyes lowered. He looked at his own hands. He spoke quieter. I failed once, he said. I don't try anymore. Scott felt a chill, not from fear of strength, from fear of certainty. Xavier tilted his head. You carry grief, he said, and guilt. Cal's eyes flashed. You don't know anything about me. Xavier nodded. Then tell us, in small pieces, enough to keep people safe. Cal hesitated. Then, like he was forcing himself, he gave them 3 clean beats. My world lost control, Cal said. Someone I loved died, and people kept dying after that because I believed the world could fix itself. He looked at Aurora. It doesn't. Not by itself. Aurora's voice stayed steady. And what did you do? Cal's face did not move. His eyes did. They went distant for a moment, like he was looking at a memory he hated. I ended the chaos, he said. Scott heard what he didn't say. How? Beast's scanner chirped again. Beast frowned at the screen. There is residual dimensional radiation around your cells, he murmured, like you were near a tear in space-time. Scott watched Cal's face. Dimensional travel. Another world. It was real. Xavier spoke again. We have a place you can rest. A room. Food. Water. Cal blinked once at the word food, like it was an odd detail in the middle of war. And, Xavier added, we would like you to stay here while we learn more. For your safety. And ours. Cal's head tilted. You want to hold me? No, Xavier said, honest. We want to know you. Cal let out a humorless breath. Knowing someone doesn't stop them from breaking. Scott watched Xavier carefully. Xavier didn't push. He offered. We also have rules, Xavier said. If you stay, you follow them. No threats. No harm. No acting as judge and executioner. Logan's eyes narrowed. He's got that vibe. Cal looked at Logan. I'm not here to execute anyone. Logan stepped closer. Testing. You sure? Cal's voice dropped. I'm sure. Scott believed him in that moment. Not because Cal was soft. Because Cal was controlled. And control could break. Joan Grey entered without a sound. Scott felt his shoulders loosen the instant he heard her steps. Joan's presence made rooms feel steadier. Joan looked at Cal. Her eyes softened, then tightened. She did not smile. Hi, she said simply. Cal's gaze lingered on her, like he could tell she was looking past his face. Jean spoke gently, but clear. Your mind is loud. Cal stiffened. Don't. Jean raised both hands, palms open. I'm not reading. I'm just hearing what spills. Cal's jaw tightened. He did not know how to handle someone who could touch his thoughts. Xavier saw it and chose calm. We will not invade your mind, Xavier promised. Not without permission. Cal's eyes flicked to Xavier. You keep saying that word. Yes, Xavier said. Because power without permission is the start of tyranny. Cal's mouth twitched. Almost a smile. Not happy. Bitter. You say that like it's a theory, Cal said. It's not. Scott felt tension rise again. He stepped forward. Here's the deal, Scott said. You can stay. We can help you find out how you got here. But you don't get to take control of our war. Cal's gaze sharpened. Your war? Scott nodded. Mutants versus fear. It's been going on a long time. Cal looked down for a moment. When he looked up, his voice was quieter. Then why are you still asking permission? He asked. If your world hates your people, why are you still playing by their rules? Aurora's face tightened. Jean's eyes flicked to Scott. Logan went still. Xavier answered, simple and firm. Because if we stop, we become the thing they fear. And then we lose more than battles. We lose ourselves. Cal stared at Xavier like he wanted to believe him. Like he also hated believing him. He looked around the room. At the school walls. At the clipboards. At the faces that were tired but steady. Finally, he nodded once. Fine, Cal said. I will stay. I will observe. I will follow your rules. He paused, then added, like it cost him something. For now. Scott held his gaze. For now is all we get from anyone. Beast cleared his throat again and slid another sheet across the table. Cal looked down. Danger room waiver? Cal asked. Yes, Beast said. Cal stared at the paper. Then, very slowly, he signed again. Logan muttered, Welcome to school, big guy. Cal didn't laugh, but his eyes flicked to Logan with the smallest hint of confusion, like humor was a language he forgot how to speak. Outside, the world did not calm down. News footage of the street fight played on repeat. Freeze frames of the cape. Close-ups of the bullet bouncing off his chest. The word mutant was shouted 100 times by people who did not know what it meant. In a hidden place filled with perfect glass tubes and humming machines, Mr. Sinister watched the footage with a smile that did not reach his eyes. "Not a mutant," he whispered. "Not human. Not anything this world is ready for." He turned to a screen showing a slow-motion scan of Cal's face. "But he will be." And in a government office, a different screen showed the same image, but with a different emotion. Fear. A man in a suit leaned forward and said, "Build more Sentinels." A program that already wanted mutants now had a new excuse. The first Sentinel strike hit at sunset the next day. Scott knew it before the alarms finished sounding. Cerebro's warning tone was sharp, not a drill, not a false scan. Multiple targets, multiple teams, multiple screams in the data. Scott's boots hit the floor as he ran. "Field team," he snapped into the comm. "We move now. Storm, north. Wolverine, east. Jean with me. Beast, keep tracking." He turned the corner and almost slammed into Cal. Cal was already dressed, not in a uniform, in the same suit he arrived in. The cape looked cleaner now, but the edges still looked scorched. Cal's eyes were fixed on the alarm panel. "That machine is back." "Machines," Scott corrected. "Plural." Cal's jaw tightened. "Where?" Scott hesitated for half a second. He felt the weight of the choice. If Cal went, Cal could end the fight fast. If Cal went, cameras would see him again. If Cal went, the world would panic harder. But people were in danger. 3 locations, Scott said. A mutant shelter in Queens, a clinic in Brooklyn, a subway evacuation point near Midtown. Cal's eyes narrowed. "I can handle all 3. Scott stepped into his path. "No." Cal stared at him, surprised. "No?" "We don't win by being a one-man army," Scott said, voice hard. "We win by controlling the situation, by keeping people safe, by not giving our enemies the story they want." Cal's gaze burned. "And if people die while you control your story?" Jean stepped between them. Her voice was calm. "Scott's right, and you're right. That's why we split." Cal looked at her. His chest rose and fell once. Slow. "Tell me where to start," he said. Scott pointed. "Subway. It's the tightest space. The most civilians." Cal nodded once. "Good." He lifted off the floor, straight up through the stairwell opening like gravity was optional. Scott ran after the others. "Blackbird in 60 seconds, he called. As they launched into the sky, Scott saw the city lights below. He saw the place where protests turned into fights, where fear turned into laws, where laws turned into machines. He also saw a blur moving ahead of their jet, already there before them. Scott swallowed. "Please," he thought, not into the comm, just into the space inside his own head. "Don't make this worse." Cal reached the subway entrance first. The station was chaos. People shoved toward the stairs. A sentinel stood in the tunnel mouth, blocking the exit like a wall. Its eyes glowed. Its voice boomed through the station. "Identifying mutant signatures." 2 smaller drones hovered behind it, scanning faces. A mother tried to pull her child away. A drone dipped and flashed a light over the child's eyes. The child cried harder. Cal's fists clenched. He did not smash the machine. Not yet. He moved through the station so fast the air popped. He grabbed the nearest fallen support beam and lifted it. He set it upright and braced it under the cracked ceiling. The ceiling trembled. Dust rained down. A train had derailed deeper in the tunnel. Metal screeched. Sparks fell like bright rain. Cal flew into the tunnel. Inside, the air was thick. Smoke, dust, heat. The train cars were twisted. People were trapped between seats. A man pinned under a door screamed for help. Cal lifted the door with 2 fingers, like it was a toy. He pulled the man free and set him down gently. He didn't speak much. He worked. He lifted a crushed section of train roof. He held it steady while people crawled out. He pushed a bent rail back into place to make a clear path. Every movement was careful. Fast, but careful. Behind him, the sentinel fired. The beam hit the tunnel wall above Cal. Rock and concrete exploded. A slab of ceiling fell toward a group of people. Cal turned and caught it with both hands. The impact shook the tunnel. He held it there, muscles locked, and spoke without looking back. "Move," he said. "Now!" People scrambled past him, staring as they ran. The sentinel stepped forward, heavy, shaking the tunnel with each step. "Unknown entity," it said. "Stand down." Cal lowered the slab slowly, set it on the ground, and rose into the air until he was face to face with the machine. "No," Cal said. His voice was not loud. It didn't need to be. He shoved the sentinel backward into the tunnel mouth. The metal body slammed into the concrete edges and cracked them. The sentinel's arm transformed, reshaping into a larger cannon. Cal's eyes flashed red. He sliced the cannon off. Clean. No explosion. The cannon clanged to the ground. The sentinel's head tilted. It did not sound angry. It sounded like a computer changing plans. Adaptation protocol. A field burst out from the sentinel's chest. Red light filled the tunnel like a warning sign. Cal's chest tightened. His eyes widened, just a little. He felt it immediately. Not pain like fire. Weakness like air being pulled out of his lungs. Red sun energy. Cal's jaw clenched. "You learned fast." His flight dipped for a second. The sentinel moved in. Its fist slammed into Cal's ribs. Cal flew backward through the tunnel, smashed into the wall, and bounced off. Dust exploded around him. Civilians screamed. Cal pushed himself forward again, faster than the sentinel expected even inside the field. He grabbed the sentinel's wrist and twisted. Metal shrieked. He slammed the arm into the tunnel wall hard enough to crack the concrete. The sentinel fired its other arm. The beam grazed Cal's shoulder. Cal's skin smoked. He hissed, not from fear, from anger at the risk near civilians. He shot forward and headbutted the sentinel's faceplate. The plate dented. The sentinel stumbled, but it didn't fall. Cal's mind raced. In his world, they built weapons too. Different names. Same idea. Find the weakness. Build a cage around it. He listened, not with ears, with everything. He heard the pulse of the red field, on, off, like a heartbeat made of light. He timed it. He burst forward when it flickered off for a fraction of a second. The weakness eased for that tiny moment. Cal used that moment like a knife. He slammed his fist into the sentinel's chest panel and ripped the core housing open. Sparks flew. The sentinel's voice jumped in pitch. "Error!" Cal grabbed the core and yanked. The red field died instantly. Strength rushed back into his body like a wave. He did not smile. He didn't enjoy it. He only moved faster now to finish the job before the tunnel collapsed. He lifted the sentinel with one hand and threw it upward through the station entrance. The machine blasted out into the street above and landed in a crater. Cal flew up after it. The sky was orange with sunset. Sirens echoed. People looked up and screamed again as they saw him rise from the station like a missile. Across the street, a news camera was already aimed. Cal froze for half a second, seeing the lens. That half second cost him. The sentinel's core in his hand flickered and sparked. It was not a true core. It was a decoy. A smaller orb shot out of the machine's chest and streaked away, tiny and fast, like a bullet made of light. Data, Cal realized. He lunged. Too late. The orb vanished into the sky. Cal turned back, furious, and crushed the sentinel body into scrap in 3 quick hits. Metal screamed. The machine died for real this time. But the lesson had already escaped. Scott's jet arrived overhead as Cal hovered above the crater. Scott saw the red glow fading from the street below and understood what it meant. "They have a red sun field," Scott said into the comm, voice tight. Jean's voice came back strained. "Scott, I can feel the drones. They're watching him like he's a new kind of mutant. Storm's voice cut in. Queen's shelter is under heavy fire. We need backup. Logan's voice was rough with rage. Brooklyn Clinic's got 2 sentinels. They're grabbing people, Scott. They're grabbing kids. Scott looked at Cal, still hovering, cape snapping in the wind. Cal's face was hard, controlled, dangerous. Scott made a choice. Cal, Scott said into the external channel. Queens, now. But listen to me. No killing. No speeches. Move fast and keep it quiet. Cal's eyes flicked to the jet. He nodded once. Then he vanished. A sonic boom cracked the air. The camera on the street caught only a blur and a gust of wind. Scott closed his eyes for half a second. Please follow the plan, Scott whispered. At the Queen's shelter, the plan was already falling apart. Storm stood at the front steps, arms raised, wind whipping around her. The shelter behind her was a converted community center. People were packed inside. Kids, parents, elderly, some mutants, some humans who were simply helping. 2 sentinels stood in the street like towers. Smaller drones hovered near their shoulders, scanning faces. Identifying, one sentinel repeated. A 3rd machine moved in from behind, blocking the alley exit. Storm's heart pounded, but her face stayed calm. She could not show fear. Fear was what these machines were built to feed. She struck first. Lightning cracked down and slammed into the nearest sentinel's head. The machine staggered. Smoke curled. The 2nd sentinel raised an arm. A net of hard light snapped outward, trying to trap Storm in a cage. Storm spun, wind slicing the net apart. Then the 3rd sentinel fired a wide beam at the shelter doors. Storm threw her whole body forward and forced a wall of air into place. The beam hit the air wall and spread like water hitting glass. It still burned the ground. Inside, people screamed. Storm heard a child crying, loud, terrified. Her jaw clenched. A blur hit the street. Cal landed between the shelter and the sentinels with such speed that the air punched outward. Dust and small rocks flew. Storm felt the wind shift around him, not because he made wind, but because he moved like a bullet. Cal did not look at the sentinels first. He looked at the shelter. He heard the crying. He heard the fear. He heard a man inside trying to calm everyone down with a voice that was breaking. Cal's face tightened. Then he looked at the machines. No, he said again. Just that word. The sentinels scanned him instantly. Unknown entity confirmed. They fired together. Cal moved. He did not dodge away. He moved into the space between beams, between blast patterns, between the angles that could hit the shelter. He caught one beam with his body and angled it up into the sky by twisting his torso. He took another across his back and didn't flinch. He used freeze breath to burst a drone midair, turning it into ice shards that fell harmlessly. Storm watched, stunned, not at the power, at the control. She had seen powerful mutants lose control under stress. This man held power like a tool. Cal shot forward and grabbed the 1st sentinel by the knee joint. He twisted. The joint popped, and the machine fell sideways. Cal caught it before it hit the shelter, holding the giant body in one hand, and set it down away from the building like he was placing furniture. Storm's eyes widened. He's careful, she whispered. The 2nd sentinel activated the red sun field. Cal's face tightened again. The light washed over him. Storm saw his flight wobble for a fraction. But this time, he didn't rush. He looked at the sentinel's chest panel. He listened for the pulse like before. He waited. Then he moved in a burst at the exact moment the field flickered. He hit the sentinel's chest with a focused punch that dented the housing. The sentinel tried to back away. Cal grabbed its arm and ripped the whole limb off. Metal screamed. Cal threw the arm into the empty street, away from people. Storm sent a lightning strike into the sentinel's head at the same time. The machine fell. Cal stepped forward, breathing a little heavier now. Not from exhaustion, from being under that field. He stared at the red glow emitter. He didn't smash it. He did something scarier. He tore it out and held it up in his hand like proof. Then he crushed it. The red light died. The remaining drones backed away and shot upward, fleeing. Storm let the wind die down slowly. The air became still again. People pushed to the shelter windows, staring out. Some cheered. Some looked afraid. Cal turned toward the shelter doors, as if ready to go inside and make sure everyone was safe. Storm stepped into his path. "Don't," she said quietly. Cal frowned. "They're scared." "They're always scared," Storm replied. "But if you walk in there like you own the place, you will make it worse." Cal's jaw clenched. He looked like he wanted to argue. Then he looked at the shelter, and he forced himself to stop. He nodded once, stiff. Storm took a breath. "Thank you," she said. Cal's eyes stayed hard. "This won't stop," he said. Storm didn't deny it. "No." Cal looked up at the sky, at the fleeing drones. "Then we stop the people building them." Storm saw the line in his face, a straight path, a simple solution. It terrified her more than the machines. Scott reached the Brooklyn clinic and found Logan in a full fight. The clinic was small, a brick building with a sign that said, "Free Care." The street outside was ripped up. Cars were overturned. Logan was on a sentinel's shoulder, claws buried in plating, ripping at wires. Sparks flew. He snarled like an animal, but Scott knew Logan was not mindless. He was focused. Every slash was aimed at joints and cables. The sentinel tried to grab him. Logan jumped, landed on the arm, and sliced the fingers off before they could close. Another sentinel fired a net cannon. The net glowed and wrapped around Logan in midair. Logan hit the ground hard, tangled. He roared and began tearing through it. Scott landed near him and blasted the net with optic force. The net snapped. "About time," Logan growled. "Glad you missed me," Scott shot back. Inside the clinic, nurses and patients huddled in hallways. Scott could hear them crying. He could hear a doctor begging someone to stay calm. The sentinels stepped forward again. Slow. Sure. Compliance required. Scott set his stance. He didn't have time to think about Cal now. He had to do his job with what he had. He blasted one sentinel in the chest. The machine slid back, feet carving lines into the road. Logan sprinted, leaped, and tore into its knee. The second sentinel fired at the clinic wall. Scott threw a blast up to deflect it. The beam still grazed the brick. The wall smoked. Then the air cracked. Cal arrived like a meteor. He hovered for half a second, seeing the clinic and the people inside. Scott saw Cal's eyes change when he saw the fear in the windows. Cal dropped in front of the clinic like a shield again. "Move," Cal said to Scott and Logan. Not a request. Logan bristled. "Don't tell me." Cal didn't wait. He grabbed both sentinels at once, one with each hand, and slammed their heads together. Metal exploded. Both machines staggered. Cal lifted them off the ground and flew them up and away from the clinic, high enough that if they exploded, nobody would die. Scott watched, stunned, as Cal moved like the sky was his battlefield, and the city was just a thing below him. The sentinels activated red sun fields midair. Two glowing red spheres expanded around them. Cal's speed dipped again, his shoulders tensed, his jaw clenched. But he didn't drop them. He tightened his grip and forced them higher anyway, pushing through the weakness with stubborn force. Then he changed tactics. He spun. He used their own weight, their own mass, and flung them toward an empty construction site by the river. They hit the ground like bombs. Cal dropped after them. Scott could only see flashes now, far away. Red glows. Quick bursts of movement. A bright line of heat vision that cut through a cannon. A gust of freeze breath that turned drones into ice and made them fall. Then it ended. Cal rose back up, carrying a twisted piece of sentinel armor like it was evidence. He landed near Scott and Logan again. Scott stepped forward, voice controlled. "You took them away from the clinic," Scott said. "Good." Cal's eyes locked on Scott. If I hadn't, they would have killed people. Scott held his gaze, and if you had killed anyone on camera, they would have used it to justify a war. Cal's mouth tightened. They're already at war. Logan spat on the ground. He's not wrong. Scott didn't look away from Cal. This world runs on fear. You make fear bigger. You make the machines bigger. Cal's eyes flicked toward the city skyline, toward the towers where laws were made. Then the fear needs to be crushed. Scott felt Jean's voice in his mind through to the comm, faint and urgent. Scott, drones. They're everywhere. They're recording him from angles we didn't even see. Scott's stomach sank. Cal looked up too. His super hearing had probably already told him. He didn't chase the drones this time. He forced himself not to. That restraint was a small victory. But Scott saw the bigger problem. Cal had been visible all day. In the subway, at the shelter, at the clinic. He had been perfect on camera in the worst way. Too strong. Too fast. Too absolute. People would not see hero. They would see threat. And someone, somewhere, would build the next answer. That night, in a bright government room filled with screens, men and women in suits watched the footage again and again. A slow-motion clip showed a bullet bouncing off Cal's chest. Another showed him lifting a sentinel with one hand. Another showed the red glow field flicker, and Cal still winning. A woman tapped the screen. "He's not a mutant," she said. A man beside her leaned forward. "Doesn't matter what he is, he's aligned with them." Another voice spoke from a speaker in the wall, calm, cold. "We designate the unknown as a priority threat," the voice said. "Target 0. On the screen, a red box locked onto Cal's face. Target 0. In a different hidden place, Mr. Sinister watched the same label appear. He laughed softly, pleased. "Yes," he whispered. "Make him your monster. That makes him easier to take." Back at the Xavier Institute, Scott stood in the hallway outside the room they had given Cal. Scott listened. He could hear Cal inside, not sleeping, not pacing either, just standing, still, like a man waiting for another disaster. Scott felt tired in his bones. Jean stepped up beside him. "He's holding himself back," she said quietly. Scott nodded. "For now." John looked at the door. "He's afraid of what he'll do if he stops holding back." Scott's eyes tightened. So are we. Inside the room, Cal stared out at the night sky. He could hear the city, news anchors, police radios, angry voices, fear. He could also hear something else, deeper under it all. A machine somewhere being built. Tools hitting metal. Power systems being tested. New red sun emitters humming to life. Cal's hands tightened into fists. He didn't know this world's rules yet, but he understood one thing perfectly. They were already preparing to fight him, and he was not sure how long he could keep saying, "Ask permission," when people were dying. By morning, the city had turned Cal into a headline. The same shaky clips played on every screen. A bullet bouncing off his chest, a sentinel's arm falling to the street, a red glow flickering around him, and him still winning anyway. Commentators argued over what he was. Mutant, alien, weapon, savior, threat. Scott Summers stood in the war room at the mansion with his arms crossed. He watched the footage without blinking. He hated how the camera loved the cape. He hated how fear would grow around it. A whiteboard behind him was already full. 3 columns. Threats. Tools. Plans. Beast pointed at a map. "They hit 3 locations yesterday," Hank said. "Not to win. To learn." Logan sat in a chair like it offended him. He had a bandage on his shoulder that he didn't need. He wore it anyway, like a reminder. "Machines learned a lot," he growled. "So did the folks watching from behind desks." Storm stood near the window, looking out at the trees. The mansion felt calm, but she could hear the world in her head like distant thunder. "Mutant neighborhoods were raided last night," she said. "Not by sentinels." by police teams with new scanners. Scott's jaw tightened. They're turning fear into policy. John stepped closer to the screens. Her eyes were tired. The drones were not normal, she said. Some of them had shielding, like they expected me. Beast nodded grimly. Anti-telepath tech is not common. Someone is funding this. Scott didn't need to say the name out loud. They all knew there were groups that wanted mutants wiped out. Some wore masks. Some wore suits. A soft voice came from the doorway. Calm. Measured. And that, Professor Xavier said, rolling into the room, is why we do not respond with rage. Logan snorted. You mean we respond with paperwork? Hank adjusted his glasses, trying not to smile. Paperwork saves lives, Logan. Logan pointed a thumb at the screen. That guy can save lives without paper. Scott looked away from the footage at last. That's what worries me. Because Scott had seen it yesterday. Cal didn't move like someone making choices. He moved like someone stopping disasters before they could happen. That sounded good. Until the day Cal decided the world itself was the disaster. Scott tapped the side of his visor, like it could hold his thoughts in place. Where is he? Jean's gaze shifted down the hall. In the room you gave him. He hasn't slept. Storm's eyes narrowed. He hears everything. Sirens. Screaming. News. Scott swallowed. That's not rest. That's torture. Xavier's voice stayed gentle, but firm. Then we help him. And we set boundaries. Logan leaned forward. You gonna tell him he needs a visitor badge to stop a massacre? Yes, Xavier said simply, because the badge is not the point. The point is that he is not above anyone here. Scott held Javier's gaze. He respected Charles. He did. But respect didn't make Scott blind. He asked me last night why we still ask permission, Scott said. He thinks consent is a luxury. Xavier folded his hands. Then we teach him it is a rule. A hard rule. And if he doesn't learn? Logan asked. Scott answered before Xavier could. Then we plan like he's a threat, even if he's not one yet. The room went quiet. That was Scott's job. To be the person who thought the thought nobody wanted to think. Beast cleared his throat. There is another issue, he said. The red sun field. It worked. It did not make him helpless, but it did slow him. Storm's face tightened. They will make it bigger. And they will make it legal, Scott said. John's eyes flicked to him. You think they're going to push a bill? Scott nodded. They already are. Xavier's expression didn't change much, but Scott saw the weight behind it. Then we do what we always do, Xavier said. We protect people. We gather truth. We resist without becoming what they say we are. Logan muttered, and we make sure the Cape doesn't decide to fix the whole world in one day. Scott didn't laugh. He couldn't. He turned toward the hallway. Let's talk to him, Scott said. Carefully, Xavier replied. Always, Scott said, even though he wasn't sure it was true. Cal stood in the guest room like it was a watch post. The curtains were open. The sky outside was pale and cold. Birds moved between branches. The mansion looked peaceful. It felt fake. He could hear the world anyway. He heard a radio host in the city saying, if that alien is with the mutants, then we need more sentinels. He heard a mother yelling at her son not to go outside because the mutant war is getting worse. He heard a man whisper, Target 0, like it was a prayer. He heard the work too. Far away, metal being cut, machines being tested, a deep hum that matched the red sun emitters he had crushed yesterday. Someone had built more overnight. Cal's hands clenched behind his back. In his world, he had learned a lesson the hard way. If you waited for fear to calm down, it never did. Fear built things. Fear voted. Fear hired people to do ugly work. A knock came at the door. Cal didn't startle. He already knew who it was. From footsteps and heartbeats. Come in, he said. Scott entered first. Xavier rolled in after him. Jean stood behind them, quiet. Storm lingered in the hallway, watching like a guard who also cared. Xavier smiled gently. "Good morning, Cal." Cal looked at him. "Morning." Scott's tone was polite but stiff. "We need to talk about yesterday." Cal's eyes sharpened. "I stopped them." "You stopped them," Scott agreed. "And you were recorded stopping them." Cal's jaw tightened. So? "So now politicians are calling you an extinction-level threat," Scott said. Cal stared for a long moment. Then he spoke. Flat. "Let them." Storm stepped into the room. "They will not only come for you," she said. "They will come for us harder." Cal looked at her. "They already are." Xavier's voice stayed calm. "Yes, and we must decide how to respond without making it worse." Cal's gaze flicked to the stack of clipboards on the dresser. He had not touched them since last night. "More rules. More responsibility," Xavier corrected. Cal took a slow breath. "Tell me what you want." Xavier didn't dodge. "I want you to accept that this is not your world. You cannot fix it by force." Cal's eyes flashed. "You think I don't know what force does?" Jean's voice was soft. "We think you know too well." Cal's mouth tightened. He looked away. Scott moved one step closer. "Careful. We need information," Scott said. "Who are you? Where did you come from? What were you doing before you fell into our sky?" Cal's chest rose. Fell. He could lie. He had lied before. He could keep them safe by keeping them ignorant. But he could also feel their fear. Not hatred. Not yet. Fear of what he might become. "I'm not from here," Cal said finally. "My Earth is different." Logan's voice cut in from the hall, sharp. "Different how?" Cal didn't look at Logan. He kept his eyes on Xavier. "I tried to be a symbol," he said, "a promise. Then I failed. Then I became something else." Xavier's expression stayed gentle, but his eyes were very serious. "What did you become?" Cal's voice went quiet. "The answer." Storm's face tightened. Scott felt a cold line in his spine. Jean swallowed. "That's not an answer. That's a warning." Cal's gaze snapped to her. "I'm not warning you," he said. "I'm warning myself." Xavier lifted a hand. Slow. "Cal," he said, "would you allow me to help you carry what you carry?" Cal's jaw clenched. "You mean read my mind?" "Only if you permit it," Xavier said. "Only enough to understand what dangers follow you." Cal stared at him. That word again. Permission. Consent. He hated that it sounded like trust. He looked at Jean. Her eyes were steady but tired. He could feel her restraint like a wall she chose to hold. Finally, he nodded once. "One session," he said. "Controlled. You stop if I say stop." Xavier nodded. "Agreed." Beast's voice called from the hallway, bright on purpose. "Excellent. I'll set up the room. With appropriate forms." Logan groaned loudly. "I hate this place." For half a second, Cal almost smiled. It didn't reach his eyes, but it existed. Then he turned serious again. "If you see what I've done," he said, "you may decide I'm your enemy." Xavier's voice was simple. "We will decide what is right, not what is easy." Cal didn't answer. He only followed them out. The room they used was quiet, not the Cerebro room. A smaller space with soft lights. Chairs, a table, no weapons, no traps. John sat near the wall, not touching anyone, but present. Scott stood by the door, arms crossed. Storm watched from the corner like a storm held behind glass. Xavier rolled close to Cal. "Are you ready?" he asked. Cal didn't sit. He stayed standing. "Do it," he said. Xavier lifted 2 fingers gently to his own temple first, then reached out with his mind like a careful hand. Cal felt it immediately, not like someone breaking in, like someone knocking from the inside. He let the door open. The memories came fast. A city. Bright. Alive. A woman laughing beside him, close enough to touch. Her name sat in his chest like a wound. Lois. Then darkness. A clown's face, a smile too wide, a joke that wasn't funny. A bomb. A scream. A crater where buildings used to be. Lois. Gone. Metropolis. Gone. Cal's lungs locked, his fists clenched. John's eyes widened. She felt it too, even without pushing. Xavier's face stayed calm, but a tear slipped down his cheek as he witnessed it. Then came another memory. Cal standing over a man in a purple suit. The clown again. Joker. Cal's hands around his throat. A snap. Silence. Scott's breath caught. Storm's fingers curled. Logan's posture changed, ready to jump in if Cal lost control now. Cal's memories didn't stop there. A room full of heroes arguing. Some wanted justice. Some wanted restraint. Some wanted him to step back. Cal stepping forward instead. A symbol on a chest. A banner. A regime. People obeying because they were afraid. And because, at first, fewer people died. And Cal's voice inside the memory, colder than his voice now. I will not allow this world to break again. Cal's eyes snapped open. Stop, he said. Xavier pulled back instantly. No struggle, no argument. Cal stood breathing hard. The room was silent except for his breath. Jean looked at him like she had seen a hurricane trapped in a man. Scott's voice was low. You killed, Scott said. Cal's jaw tightened. Yes. And then you ruled, Scott said. Cal didn't deny it. Yes. Storm spoke, quiet but sharp. And did it save your world? Cal's eyes flashed. It stopped the chaos. That's not what she asked, Jean said gently. Cal's throat moved. He didn't speak for a moment. His hands unclenched slowly, like he was forcing them open. It saved some people, he admitted, and it hurt others. Logan finally stepped in, voice rough. So what are you now, bub? Savior? King? Executioner? Cal looked at Logan. His eyes didn't blaze. They didn't threaten. They looked tired. I don't know, Cal said. That's why I'm still holding back. Scott felt the honesty and didn't know if it made him feel better or worse. Xavier wiped his cheek. You have been through hell, he said, but you are here now. And here we choose a different path. Cal stared at him. Your path is slow. Yes, Xavier said, and it is hard. Cal looked away, toward the window. Hard doesn't mean right, he said. Storm answered firm. Sometimes it does. Cal didn't reply. He left the room like a man walking out of a courtroom. Scott watched him go and felt the plan in his head shifting. Cal wasn't lying. Cal was dangerous because he believed he was right. That afternoon, the mansion's gate sensors chimed. Not an alarm, not a warning, a polite alert. Someone had approached the property with confidence, like they expected to be invited. Beast met them outside with Scott and Storm. Jean stood back, her mind ready. Logan leaned against a tree, pretending not to care. A man stood by the gate in a dark suit, holding a slim case. He smiled like a salesman who already knew the answer. Dr. Henry McCoy, he said, voice smooth. Mr. Summers, Miss Monroe, I bring greetings. And an offer. Beast didn't smile. From whom? The man opened the case just enough to show a silver card with a clean symbol and no name. From people who appreciate exceptional beings. Scott's eyes narrowed. You're here about Cal. The man nodded. We understand you have taken in an unusual visitor, someone not native to this world. Storm's voice went cold. How do you know that? The man's smile didn't fade. Information travels quickly. Jean's eyes tightened. She couldn't read him clearly. That meant shielding. That meant serious money. Beast stepped closer, polite but firm. State your offer. The man looked past them, toward the mansion. We can provide answers, he said. What he is. How he arrived. Perhaps even how he can return. Scott felt the hook. The bait was smart. Cal wanted control. He wanted certainty. He wanted a way home, even if he didn't say it. "And what do you want?" Scott asked. The man spread his hands. "Cooperation? Access. A sample of tissue for medical study. Purely for safety." Beast's expression turned sharp. "Absolutely not." The man's smile sharpened too, like he enjoyed resistance. "You are making this emotional," he said. "This is scientific." Storm's eyes flashed. "Science without consent is cruelty." The man's gaze flicked to her like he was amused she said the word. "Consent," he repeated, like he was tasting it. A charming habit. Logan's claws slid out. "Get off our lawn." The man didn't flinch. He closed the case. "Very well," he said, "but understand this. Others will not ask. And when the world decides your guest is a threat, you will wish you had allies with resources." Scott's voice stayed flat. "Leave." The man nodded politely and turned away. As he walked off, Jean felt something brush the edge of her mind. Not a thought. A signal. Like a hidden transmitter. She frowned. "He's pinging our defenses." Beast's face tightened. "He was mapping us." Logan snarled. "Should have let me." "No," Scott said quickly. "He wanted a reaction. He wanted a reason." Storm watched the man disappear beyond the trees. "That was not the government," she said. Beast's voice dropped. "No, that was worse." Deep in the mansion, Cal listened to every word. He heard sample. He heard study. He heard safety. He heard the same kind of talk that had built cages on his Earth. His fists clenched. And somewhere far away, in a red-lit lab, Mr. Sinister watched a feed from a hidden camera and smiled. "They refused," he murmured. "Good. That means they value him." He tapped his screen. "Now let us see how long that lasts." 2 nights later, Magneto arrived like a storm with a face. He didn't knock. He didn't sneak. He simply appeared above the lawn, hovering, cape flowing, helmet shining under moonlight. Metal gates groaned as if the mansion itself wanted to bow. Scott ran out with Storm and Jean. Logan was already there, cigarette in hand, like he had been waiting. Cal stepped out last. He looked up at Magneto and didn't look impressed. He looked cautious. Magneto's voice carried across the lawn, deep and calm. "So," he said, "the rumors are true." Storm's eyes narrowed. "Eric, this is not your stage." Magneto smiled slightly. "It is always my stage, Aurora. The world is obsessed with power. I simply refuse to pretend otherwise." His gaze dropped to Cal. "You," he said, "you are power." Cal hovered a few inches off the ground without thinking, like his body chose readiness. "And you are?" Cal asked. Magneto's smile widened. "A survivor," he said. "A man who learned the world does not stop hating you just because you ask nicely." Cal's eyes sharpened. "You know about me." "I know enough," Magneto said. "A being fell from the sky and broke sentinel weapons like toys. The humans called him Target Zero." Storm's voice turned sharp. "Humans do not speak for all humans." Magneto tilted his head. "No," he agreed, "but they hold the guns and write the laws." Scott stepped forward. "What do you want, Eric?" Magneto's gaze stayed on Cal. "I want to speak to him," he said. "Alone." Xavier's voice came from the doorway behind them, calm and firm. "No," Xavier said. "Not alone." Magneto's smile turned cold. "Still hiding behind rules, Charles." Cal finally spoke, voice flat. "Say what you came to say." Magneto nodded, like he respected directness. "Good," he said. "I came to offer you truth." He lifted a hand, and a dozen small metal shards rose from the ground. Nails, coins, bits of fence, spinning slowly, controlled, harmless. A display, a reminder. "I have fought these machines," Magneto said. "I have watched humans build them again and again, and I have learned one thing. They do not stop until they are forced. He pointed a finger at the sky. They fear you. They will build a world-sized cage to hold you, and they will use that cage on mutants too. Cal's jaw tightened. Then stop them, he said, as if it was simple. Magneto's smile returned. Exactly, he said. Stop them. Permanently. Scott's voice snapped. No. Storm's eyes flashed. Eric! Magneto didn't look at them. You are tired, he told Cal. I can see it. A man does not carry that look unless he has watched the world burn and tried to hold it together with his hands. Cal's eyes narrowed. You want me to join you? Magneto spread his arms. I want you to stand with mutant kind, he said. Not as a guest, not as an observer, as a shield, as a sword, as the end of their arrogance. Jean felt a tremor in Cal's mind, not excitement, not agreement, a sharp pull toward certainty. Cal spoke slowly. I don't know your people, he said. Magneto's voice softened in a way that was almost kind. You do, he said. They are the ones hunted, the ones blamed, the ones told to be patient while their children bleed. Storm's fists clenched. She hated that Magneto knew how to aim words like knives. Xavier rolled forward, voice steady. Eric, he said, you are manipulating pain. Magneto's gaze flicked to Xavier, briefly. I am naming reality, he said. Cal stared at Magneto. And if I say no? Magneto's smile didn't fade. Then I will still fight, he said. But I will know you chose to stand aside while history repeats. Logan's voice was rough. Nice guilt trip. Magneto ignored him. He looked back at Cal one last time. If you want a world where they cannot build cages, he said, you must break the hands that build them. Then he rose higher into the air. Storm's voice cut through the night. Eric, do not bring war to this home. Magneto's cape fluttered. War is already here, he said. And he vanished into the dark sky like a promise and a threat at the same time. Cal stood still on the lawn for a long moment. Scott watched him closely. You can't listen to him, Scott said. Cal's voice was quiet. He's wrong about some things, he said. Scott waited. Cal added, even quieter. He's not wrong about the machines. Across the city, in a building with no windows, a man stood over a table of metal and light. His face was calm. His eyes were not. Bastion watched screens filled with data from the last Sentinel fights. The graphs showed speed, heat, impact, reaction time. The red sunfield results were highlighted in bold. He didn't call Cal a man. He didn't call him a hero. He called him a variable. Target 0 changes everything, Bastion said. A technician shifted nervously. The red sunfield only works in range. He can outmaneuver it. Bastion nodded. Then we do not try to outpunch him, he said. We do not chase him in the sky like fools. He tapped the table. A new blueprint appeared. Smaller machines, faster drones, red sun emitters that could be planted like mines, cameras embedded in streetlights. And, Bastion continued, we do not fight him first. We fight his reputation. A second screen showed a political poll. Fear rising. Support rising for Sentinel funding. Bastion's mouth twitched. People are simple, he said. They want safety. Give them a monster, and they will beg for cages. He turned to another screen. A bill draft. An official seal. A name at the top. Enhanced Threat Response Act. The technician swallowed. If it passes. Bastion cut him off. It will, he said. And when it does, every raid is legal. Every capture is justified. Every death is a statistic. He leaned closer, voice almost gentle. We will not beat Target 0 with strength, he said. We will beat him with choices. The bill passed in less than a week. It didn't call mutants people. It called them risks. It didn't say protect. It said contain. It didn't say save lives. It said Ensure compliance. Scott read the document with his hands shaking. He stood in the war room again, but it felt smaller now, like the world outside had grown teeth. Storm stared at the screen in anger. They made hatred into law, she said. Beast's voice was low. They can deploy sentinels anywhere, he said, with government cover. John pressed fingers to her temple. I can feel fear everywhere, she whispered. It's like the city is holding its breath. Xavier sat quietly. His face was sad, but his voice stayed steady. We respond with care, he said. We protect, we document, we expose. A sound came from the doorway. Not footsteps, a presence. Cal stood there, still as stone. He had heard it too. The radio talk, the cheers from anti-mutant crowds, the quiet panic in mutant homes, the law. His eyes were flat. His voice was calm in the scariest way. They signed it, Cal said. Scott turned, heart pounding. Cal, they signed a law that will hunt children, Cal continued. They will call it safety. They will build machines until no one can breathe. Xavier lifted a hand. Cal, he said gently, we will fight this, but we do it without becoming tyrants. Cal's jaw tightened. What is tyranny? He asked. Stopping people from being murdered, or letting murder happen because the process is polite? Storm stepped forward, voice sharp. Do not reduce our struggle to polite. Cal looked at her. Then don't accept a world where they get to write laws that kill you, he said. Scott's voice hardened. Say what you're thinking. Cal didn't flinch. Remove them, he said. The room went silent. Beast swallowed. Jean's eyes widened. Storm's hands curled into fists. Xavier's voice was soft, but absolute. No, he said. Cal's gaze locked on Xavier. They made themselves the threat, Cal said. I can stop the threat. Scott stepped between them. By murdering elected officials, Scott snapped. That's not stopping. That's starting a war you can't finish. Cal's eyes flashed. I've finished wars. Jean's voice cut in, calm but urgent. And what did it cost you? Cal's expression twitched. For a second, the memory of Lois sat right on his face. Then it hardened again. This isn't my world, he said, like he was reminding himself. So tell me, if I can't remove the people, what do I remove? Xavier's voice was steady. The lies, he said. The machines. The fear. We expose. We protect. We build trust. Cal stared at him. Trust doesn't stop a sentinel. Scott took a breath. He forced his voice lower. We hit their supply chain, Scott said. We gather proof. We rescue people. We make it public. We make it impossible to deny. Cal's gaze narrowed. And if proof doesn't matter? Scott met his eyes. Then we still don't become killers, he said. Because if we do, we prove them right. Cal looked away. His hands clenched. Then he spoke, like he was choosing a smaller violence, because someone asked him to. Fine, Cal said. We remove the machines. That was not peace, but it was a step away from a cliff. Scott nodded once, relieved and terrified at the same time. Then we plan, Scott said. The next day, the danger room felt different. It wasn't fun. It wasn't training for a show. It was rehearsal for something that could break the world. Scott watched Cal stand in the center of the simulator. The walls projected a city street. A sentinel stepped out of fake smoke. Beast's voice came through a speaker. Remember, Hank said, this is a controlled environment. Do not destroy my... Cal moved. Fast. Clean. He didn't punch the sentinel in the head. He grabbed its arm, twisted, and locked it behind its back like a wrestler. He sliced the cannon off with heat vision so precise it left the floor unburned. He tore out the red sun emitter and set it down gently. Then he stepped back, breathing steady, like he had just finished a simple task. The sentinel fell. The danger room reset. Scott clicked off his visor a notch so he could look Cal in the face. You're controlling your strength, Scott said. Cal didn't look proud. He looked tense. "I'm controlling myself," he said. Storm crossed her arms. "Good," she said, "because this mission will not be won by rage." Logan leaned near the wall, chewing on a toothpick. "Speak for yourself," he muttered. Beast entered with a clipboard. Of course he did. He held it out to Cal. "Mission consent and conduct guidelines," Hank said brightly, like he could trick fear with manners. Cal stared at the paper. "You're joking." "I am not," Beast said. Logan groaned. "I swear, if I die, it'll be because I tripped on a form." Jean took the clipboard and read quickly. "No lethal force," she said. "No forced mind probes. Rescue first. Evidence second. Destruction last." Cal's jaw tightened at destruction last, but he didn't argue. Scott looked at him. "You wanted a way to stop tragedies before they happen," Scott said. "This is it. We cut the machine's legs out before it runs." Cal nodded. "Slow." "Where?" he asked. Beast tapped the map on the board. "A black site," Hank said. "Not officially listed. Not officially funded. But it is real. I found unusual power use under an old industrial zone." Storm's eyes narrowed. "You mean a hidden factory?" "More like a research and holding facility," Beast said. Jan's face tightened. "A prison." Scott exhaled. "We go in quiet," he said. "We get people out. We get proof out. And we leave before they can turn it into a public war." Cal's eyes sharpened. "And if they try to stop us?" Scott met his gaze. "Then we stop them," Scott said. "Our way." Cal stared for a long moment, then nodded. "Fine," Cal said again. But Scott could see it. Cal didn't love fine. Cal loved certainty. Cal loved done. And this mission was going to test that. They went at night. No speeches, no capes on camera, no big entrances. The Blackbird cut across the sky with its lights off. Below them, the city looked peaceful from far away. That was another trick. Scott sat near the ramp, checking gear. Not weapons meant to kill. Tools meant to disable. EMP charges. Drones for scanning. Hank's little devices that could jam sensors. Storm sat with her hands clasped, eyes closed, holding her focus. Jean sat beside her, quiet and steady. Logan leaned back like he was bored, but Scott saw the tension in his shoulders. He always got tense near places that held cages. Cal stood near the front, looking down through the floor, like he could see the underground base already. His hearing was probably picking up the hum of machines miles away. Beast walked over with another small device. "This will help mask your thermal signature," he told Cal, offering it like a gift. Cal stared. "You're trying to hide the sun," he said. Beast smiled, nervous. "Only a little." Cal took it carefully. "Thank you," he said, stiff, like gratitude was new. The Blackbird banked toward an empty warehouse district. Scott's voice came through calm. "We land 2 blocks out," he said. "On foot from there. No flying unless necessary." Cal's eyes narrowed. "On foot," he repeated, like it was a weird choice. "Yes," Scott said, "because we are not starting a war with a sonic boom." Logan grinned. "Listen to the hall monitor, Cape." Cal didn't bite. He just nodded once. The jet touched down silent in an alley shadow. The team moved out. Cold air, wet pavement, the smell of oil and old metal. Beast pointed to a fenced lot with a "for lease" sign. "Under that," Hank said. Storm frowned. "How?" Beast lifted a small scanner. "Because the ground is too warm," he said. "And because I can hear machines that should not be there." Cal tilted his head. He listened. 3 levels, he said. Guards on the first. Cells on the second. A big chamber on the third. John looked at him. "How do you know that?" Cal's eyes stayed flat. "Because I can hear the difference between a door and a cage," he said. Logan's face tightened. "Yeah," he muttered. "Me too." Scott lifted a hand. "We go," he said. They cut through a side door in an abandoned building, down a stairwell that should have ended at a basement. Instead, it kept going. Concrete turned new. Lights turned bright. Cameras appeared in corners. They were in the wrong world now. The clean world that hides dirty work. Scott signaled for silence. A guard turned the corner with a rifle and a scanner wand. Jean reached out with her mind, careful, gentle, and nudged his attention away. But something pushed back. Jean's eyes widened. She stumbled one step. A pulse hit the hallway like a silent shockwave. Her mind felt thick, like someone put a helmet on her brain. Storm grabbed her elbow. "Jean?" Jean breathed out. "They built shielding," she whispered. "They expected us." Scott's gut tightened. "Move faster," he ordered. They slipped past the guard as he blinked, confused. Beast crouched by a panel and began hacking it. His fingers moved fast. "There is more than government tech here," he murmured. "This is advanced." Logan sniffed the air. "Smells like labs," he growled, and fear. Cal's eyes narrowed down the hallway. "People," he whispered. "Alive." Scott nodded. "Rescue first," he reminded everyone, and himself. They reached a wide door, marked with a simple symbol. No words. Just a clean circle with a line through it. Beast's face tightened. "That symbol," he whispered. Storm's eyes hardened. "Orcus," she said. Scott didn't like how calm the door looked. He liked it even less when it opened before they touched it. A voice came from inside, smooth and loud enough to fill the hall. "Welcome," it said. "We were hoping you'd come." Scott's visor lowered. "Trap," he hissed. Cal took one step forward anyway. "Of course," Cal said, voice cold. "You want to see if you can hold me?" The room beyond was huge. White walls, bright lights, a high ceiling, cameras everywhere. And in the center, like a stage, was a circular chamber made of thick glass and metal. Red lights pulsed along its edges. A red sun cage. Scott's stomach dropped. Cal's face didn't change much, but the air around him did, like the room got heavier. John's voice was tight. "They built this for you," she whispered. Cal stared at the chamber. "I know," he said. A dozen small drones rose from the ceiling like insects, their lenses focused on Cal. Each one had a red light on its side. Scott pointed at them. "Don't let them record." Too late. A tone sounded, sharp, clean, like a bell. The floor under Cal lit up in a red circle. The red sun field snapped on. Cal's breath hitched. Not in fear, in sudden weakness. The chamber's glass walls rose up around him with a hiss, locking him inside. Scott lunged forward. "Cal!" Cal slammed a fist into the glass. It cracked, but the red light intensified. His strength dipped again. Not gone, but forced down, like someone tied weights to his bones. Cal looked at Scott through the glass. His eyes were furious. Then he did something Scott didn't expect. He stopped punching. He listened. He tilted his head like he was counting the pulse again. Scott realized it. Cal was learning the cage while they learned the room. "Team!" Scott snapped. "We do this without him. Move!" Storm lifted her hands. Wind surged into the room, knocking drones into walls. Logan dashed forward, claws out, shredding a control console. Beast ran to a side panel and started ripping cables out, teeth clenched. Jean tried to push into the mines behind the cameras, wherever the operators were, but the anti-telepath pulse hit again. Jean cried out, stumbling. Storm caught her. "Stay with me," Storm said, fierce. "Breathe!" Scott fired an optic blast at the base of the red chamber. The beam hit and scattered, like the glass was built to spread energy. "Of course," Scott growled. "Of course they planned for me too." A door on the far wall opened. Machines stepped in. Not full sentinels. Smaller. Sleeker. Faster. Like wolves made of metal. They moved in coordinated patterns, trying to split the team. One machine lunged at Beast. Logan tackled it midair and tore its head off in one violent move. Another aimed a red sun emitter at Storm. Storm blasted it with lightning so hard it sparked and fell. A third went for Jean, trying to pin her down with hard light straps. Scott shot it in the back with a blast, breaking its legs. Jane stood, shaking, and pushed a wave of telekinesis outward. It slammed 2 machines into the wall and held them there like insects on a board. But John's face tightened. The anti-telepath pulse kept pressing on her mind like a headache made of metal. She could fight through it, but it hurt. Inside the chamber, Cal watched all of it. He heard their heartbeats speeding up. He heard the machines changing frequencies. He heard the drones repositioning. He could break out, maybe, if he accepted collateral damage, if he accepted that the glass might shatter outward and cut his friends. That was the old path. The done path. He gritted his teeth. Not here. He forced himself to trust them. Cal closed his eyes and listened for the red field's rhythm. On. Off. On. Off. When it dipped, even for a fraction, he moved. He didn't punch. He placed his palms against the glass and pushed at the seams where the panels met. He worked like a builder, not a destroyer. The next pulse hit and weakened him again. He held the seam anyway. He waited. Another flicker. He shifted his hands, found the weak point, and pushed again. The glass began to separate in a quiet, controlled crack. Outside, Scott saw it. Cal was not raging. Cal was solving. That gave Scott a burst of hope. Then the room changed again. An alarm sounded, deeper, more serious. A voice came through the speakers, calm as death. Containment stage 2, it said. The floor opened beneath the chamber. Cal's eyes snapped open. The whole cage began to drop like an elevator. Scott sprinted. No! Storm blasted wind into the gap to slow it, but the chamber was too heavy. Beast shouted, "They're taking him deeper!" John's face tightened, and she did the only thing she could do. She threw a telekinetic grip around the falling chamber like invisible hands and tried to hold it. Her knees buckled. Blood trickled from her nose. She held it anyway. Cal looked up at her through the glass, shocked. Jean's voice shook, but it was clear. "We're not losing you," she said through clenched teeth. Cal's chest tightened at that. A simple sentence. A simple choice. Scott grabbed John's shoulder. "Jean, stop! You'll hurt yourself." John's eyes blazed. "I'm already hurt," she said. "Help me!" Storm slammed both hands down and called wind into the gap like a roaring column. It pushed upward, slowing the chamber's fall. Beast ran to a side console and ripped it open, wires snapping. "Give me 10 seconds," he shouted. Logan moved like a beast himself, leaping onto a machine trying to reach Beast and tearing it apart. Scott fired blast after blast at the mechanism lowering the chamber, trying to break the gears without collapsing the floor. The chamber shuddered. It stopped. Halfway down, John collapsed to one knee, panting. Cal stared at them, breathing hard. He had been trapped, weak, vulnerable, and they still chose to save him. That mattered. Then the lights dimmed. A new set of doors opened, and metal screamed. Every loose bolt, every cable, every piece of steel in the room trembled, then ripped free. A storm of metal rose like a wave. Magneto floated in through the doorway, calm and terrible. His eyes swept the room. He saw the drones, the cages, the machines. His voice was low. "So," he said, "this is where they hide their sins." Storm's face tightened. "Eric, not now." Magneto ignored her. He looked at the red chamber holding Cal. He smiled slightly. "And this," he said, "is their newest mistake." Scott's stomach twisted. Magneto here made everything sharper, faster, more deadly. Magneto lifted both hands. The entire chamber shook. Cal's eyes widened as the red light flickered wildly. The field sputtered as Magneto tore power lines from the walls. The chamber's metal braces began to bend under Magneto's control. Scott shouted, "Eric, there are people here, prisoners." Magneto's gaze flicked to Scott. Then, you should thank me, he said. I am removing the problem. He yanked. The red chamber's frame warped. The field crashed out in a burst of sparks. Cal's strength returned like a punch of air. Cal didn't waste a second. He pushed the remaining glass panel outward carefully and stepped free, not letting shards fly. He landed on the floor with a heavy thud. His eyes locked on Magneto. For 1 second, Scott thought Cal might accept the offer Magneto made on the lawn. The offer of final answers. Cal spoke, voice cold. You broke my cage, he said. Magneto smiled. You're welcome. Cal's eyes narrowed. That doesn't make you in charge. Magneto's smile sharpened. Neither does your strength, he replied. Storm stepped between them fast. Stop, she said. Wind curled around her like a warning. This is not the moment to fight each other. Cal looked past her at the open doors leading deeper underground. I hear them, Cal said. People. Crying. Scott snapped back into command. Rescue first, he shouted. Storm, Jean, with me. Logan, cover Beast. Cal. Cal's head turned toward Scott. He waited, like he was choosing to obey. Scott's throat tightened at that small thing. Cal, Scott said, firm. You go down and get the prisoners out. Do not kill. Do not chase. Do not make speeches, Logan finished, grinning. Cal's mouth twitched again, almost annoyed, almost amused. I won't, Cal said. Then he shot down the open shaft like a silent missile. No sonic boom this time, because he chose control. Magneto watched him go, eyes thoughtful. He listens to you, Magneto said to Scott, almost surprised. Scott didn't look at him. For now, Scott said. Magneto's voice turned soft, dangerous. Do not waste that, he said. Below, the second level smelled like bleach and fear. Cal landed in a hallway with doors on both sides. Thick doors, no windows, locks that clicked and hummed. He listened. Heartbeats. Dozens. Some fast, some slow, some weak. He moved, fast and careful, ripping locks off doors without ripping the doors off the walls. He opened the first door. A young mutant boy stared up at him, eyes wide, bruises on his wrist where cuffs had been. Cal froze for a fraction, because the boy's eyes were the same kind of wide that Metropolis kids had before the bomb. Cal crouched, keeping his voice low. You're safe, he said. The boy didn't move. He didn't believe it. Cal swallowed. My name is Cal, he said. I'm going to take you out. The boy's mouth opened. No sound came out. Cal held out a hand slowly, not grabbing, not forcing. The boy took it. Cal moved down the hallway, opening doors, lifting people who couldn't walk, breaking cuffs with careful pressure. Some prisoners cried when they saw him. Some flinched away, afraid of another cage. Cal didn't have time to comfort them with long words. He did it with action, with steady hands, with not hurting anyone. A door at the end of the hall had thicker locks. Cal heard machines behind it. Larger. He heard a deep hum. Red sun hum. He clenched his jaw. He ripped the door open. Inside was a lab. Not just weapons. Tables with restraints. Tubes with fluid. And a screen filled with data labeled Target Zero Physiology. Cal's blood went cold. A memory flashed. His own world's labs. His own prisons. He stepped forward, eyes narrowing. Then he saw it. A small metal drone on the ceiling, lens pointed at him, blinking red. Recording. Cal's eyes flared. He didn't blast it with heat vision. He jumped up, grabbed it, and crushed it in his hand so the pieces didn't fly. He looked around the lab again. On one table, a needle set sat ready. A tray of clean vials. Someone had planned to take from him. Cal's fists clenched. This was the moment he usually crossed a line. He took a breath. He looked at the prisoners behind him, huddled in the hallway. He forced his hands open. Not now, he told himself. He grabbed the tray of vials and crushed them too. Not from rage, from prevention. Then he carried the last 2 prisoners into the shaft and launched upward, using his body as a shield so they wouldn't hit walls. He rose into the upper level again like a rescue helicopter made of muscle. When he broke into the main room, Scott saw him carrying 2 people carefully. Scott felt a flare of relief. Cal didn't kill anyone. He didn't go hunting. He rescued. Storm ran to help the prisoners. John staggered but stood, using telekinesis to guide people gently out of the shaft. Beast shouted, "I have the main data nodes." He held a hard drive unit in his hands like it was a fragile egg. Logan wiped oil and sparks off his face. "We're out," he growled. "Now." Scott nodded. "Extraction." A sound cut him off. A soft clap. Slow. Polite. Everyone froze. From a side corridor, a figure stepped out in a white coat, face hidden by a mask. Too clean. Too calm. He held up a small vial. Not full. Not much. But enough to make Beast's eyes widen. "Ah," the masked man said, voice musical. "So much effort. So much heroism." Beast's voice went sharp. "Who are you?" The man chuckled. "A fan," he said. Cal's eyes narrowed. "Put it down." The man tilted the vial, showing the tiniest red drop inside. "You bled," he said, delighted. "Just a little. That's all science needs." Jean's mind pushed outward, trying to grab him. The anti-telepath pulse hit again, and Jean winced. The masked man waved cheerfully. "Goodbye," he said. Then he vanished into smoke, like a trick. Storm blasted wind through the corridor, trying to clear it. Nothing. Only a faint laugh left in the air. Beast's hands shook. "Sinister," Hank whispered. "That was sinister." Scott's stomach dropped. He got a sample. Beast nodded, horrified. A drop. But yes. Cal's face went very still. A drop of his blood in the hands of a man like that was not science. It was a future nightmare. Logan grabbed Scott's shoulder. "We leave," Logan snarled, "before this place buries us." As if the base heard him, a new alarm blared. A countdown began on the wall screens. Self-destruct. In 1:30. Storm's eyes widened. "They're going to erase the proof." Beast clutched the data nodes. "Not if we leave with this." Scott lifted his visor slightly and looked at Cal. "Can you carry?" Cal didn't wait. He scooped up 3 prisoners at once, careful with his grip, and nodded at Scott like a soldier. Scott pointed. "Up and out," he ordered. "Now." They ran. They flew. They climbed through broken doors and shafts while the facility screamed with alarms. Magneto floated above them, calm as the countdown ticked. He looked down at Scott. "This is what they do," he said. "They hide, they build, they erase." Scott didn't argue. He only shouted, "Help or get out of the way." Magneto's mouth twitched. "Help!" he said, like he was granting a favor. He lifted both hands. The steel ceiling beams above them bent upward, opening a clean path to the surface like the building itself peeled back. Wind rushed in. Night air. Freedom. Cal shot up first with the prisoners. Storm followed, carrying others in a curl of wind. Jean used telekinesis to lift the weakest. Scott climbed out last with Beast and Logan. The hard drives clutched tight. They cleared the lot just as the ground shook. A deep boom rolled through the industrial zone. The black site collapsed inward, swallowing itself like a mouth closing. Flames rose, then died quickly, choked by collapsing concrete. From a distance, it might look like an accident. But the cameras were already there. Drones rose from surrounding rooftops, recording the fire, recording the fleeing mutants, recording Cal hovering above them with people in his arms. Scott heard the buzz and felt sick. They had proof, yes. But the world would also have a story. And the world loved stories that made it feel justified. A news drone zoomed in on Cal's face and caught him staring at the burning hole. The caption on the livestream popped up within seconds. "Target 0 destroys government facility." Cal's eyes narrowed. "I didn't," he started. Scott grabbed his arm hard. "Don't," Scott said. "Not here. Not on camera." Cal looked down at Scott's hand on his arm. He didn't shake it off. That restraint cost him. Scott could see it. Storm guided the freed prisoners away into the shadows. Jean's face was pale, but she stayed upright, helping an older woman walk. Beast stared at the hard drives like they were life rafts. "This is real," he said. "We can expose them." Logan looked at the drones with hate. "And they'll call it fake," he said. "Or call us terrorists anyway." Scott watched Cal hover in place, cape moving in the night wind. The strongest being Scott had ever seen looked trapped, not by a cage, but by a camera. Magneto floated a short distance away, watching it all with a hard smile. "You see?" Magneto said quietly. Not to Scott this time. To Cal. "They will blame you no matter what." Cal's jaw clenched. He looked away from Magneto and down at the people they had saved. A child clung to Storm's hand. A teenager stared up at Cal like he couldn't decide if he was an angel or a bomb. Cal swallowed. He chose the only thing he could choose right now. He lowered himself to the ground and stepped back, letting the X-Men take the lead with the rescued prisoners. No speech. No threats. Just action. But inside, his mind was already racing ahead, because he could hear it again, far away. The hum of factories working overtime. More red sun emitters being built. More drones being deployed. More laws being written. And now, worse than all of that, Sinister had his blood. Cal looked up at the sky where the drones hovered like judgment. The universe had noticed him. The villains had noticed him. And the world had decided he was the center of the next war, whether he wanted that role or not. The mansion felt too quiet after the black site. The team had saved people. They had carried the weak. They had escaped a trap. They had brought home hard drives full of proof. And still, the world outside sounded louder than ever. Scott sat at the big table in the war room with a laptop open. Lines of news headlines scrolled like a flood. Target 0 attacks. Secret facility. Mutant terror cell destroys government site. Sentinel program expands to protect America. Beast stood behind Scott with his hands on the back of his chair, shoulders tense. He looked like he wanted to argue with the whole internet. "They used our escape footage," Beast said, voice tight. "They cut it. They removed the prisoners. They removed the cages." Storm paced slowly by the window, eyes narrowed. "They kept the fire," she said. "They kept the cape." John sat with a tissue to her nose. The anti-telepath pulses had left her with a headache that didn't stop. Her eyes followed the headlines, but her focus wasn't on the words. "It's everywhere," she whispered. "Fear is everywhere." Logan leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "Welcome to our life," he muttered. Xavier rolled in quietly. His face was calm, but the lines around his eyes were deeper than usual. "Hank," he said, gentle. "What do the drives show?" Beast tapped the table and projected files onto the screen. Photos, lists, logs, video clips from inside the facility. Cages, restraints, medical notes, names. Scott felt his stomach tighten when he saw a file labeled Enhanced Threat Response, Approved. Another labeled Nimrod Prototype, Online. Storm's lips pressed into a thin line. "We show this," she said, "to everyone." Scott nodded. "We will," he said. "But we have to do it smart." Logan snorted. "Smart doesn't matter when they already picked their story." Scott's jaw tightened. "Then we pick ours," he snapped back, "and we make it impossible to ignore." He glanced toward the hallway. Cal had not entered the war room since the black site. He had come back with them. He had carried people. He had listened when Scott told him not to speak on camera. And then he had disappeared into the mansion like a shadow. Scott stood. "I'm going to check on him." John's eyes lifted. "Be careful," she said softly. "He's holding something back again." Storm's voice was quiet. "He always is." Scott walked down the hall and found Cal in the gym. Not training on weights, not hitting a bag, just standing, still, facing a wall. A clipboard sat on a bench nearby. Scott recognized it. A schedule. Team debrief. Therapy session. Danger room. Patrol rotation. Cal stared at the wall like he could see through it into the city. Scott stopped a few steps away. "You didn't come to the meeting." Cal didn't turn. "I heard it," he said. Scott's eyes flicked to the clipboard. "Beast left you a schedule." Cal finally turned his head slightly. "Your running joke is paper," he said. Scott almost smiled. "Almost." "It's not a joke," Scott said. "It's a system." Cal's gaze was flat. "Systems can be corrupted." Scott nodded. "Yes. That's why we keep building better ones." Cal looked down at his hands. "I keep hearing the machines," he said. "Being built, being tested, being shipped." Scott's voice lowered. "We know." Cal's eyes lifted. "Then why aren't we stopping it?" Scott held his ground. "We are," he said. "By exposing it, by protecting people, by not turning into what they want us to be." Cal's jaw tightened. "They want us to be afraid. They want us to be violent," Scott corrected. "There's a difference." Cal stared at him for a long moment. Then he said the quiet part out loud. "My world tried laws first," Cal said. "Then talks, then patience, then funerals, then more laws to stop the anger, then more funerals." Scott swallowed. "This isn't your world." Cal's eyes sharpened. "That's what scares me," he said. "I don't know where the line is here." Scott took a slow breath. "Then don't draw it alone," he said. Cal looked at him, confused. Scott gestured toward the clipboard. "Come to the debrief. Train with us. Patrol with us. Let us tell you when you're about to cross a line." Cal stared at the clipboard like it was a chain. Then, slowly, he reached down and picked it up. He read the top line. "Consent and conduct guidelines." Cal let out a short breath through his nose. Not a laugh, but close. "Your rules are exhausting," he said. Scott nodded. "Good," he replied. "If they're exhausting, you'll think before you act." Cal's eyes flicked to Scott's face. "And if thinking costs lives?" Scott didn't dodge it. "Then we accept that saving lives doesn't give us permission to own them," he said. Cal's gaze dropped again. He looked like he wanted to argue. Instead, he did something small and huge. He picked up Beast's pen. He signed the patrol rotation sheet. Scott's shoulders loosened a little. "Thank you," Scott said. Cal's mouth tightened. "Don't thank me," he said. "Just don't lie to me." Scott nodded. "Deal." As Scott turned to leave, Cal's voice stopped him. "There's something else," Cal said. Scott looked back. "What?" Cal's eyes narrowed, listening. "Someone is coming," he said. Scott's gut tightened. "Who?" Cal's gaze lifted toward the sky, toward the edge of hearing. He answered in a flat, certain voice. "An upgraded one," Cal said, "and it's not coming from mutants first." 2 days later, the first public move happened. Not a hidden raid, not a quiet black site, a daytime demonstration. A podium was set up in a city square. Cameras, flags, a line of new Sentinel units behind the speakers like metal statues. Bastion stood near the front, dressed like a clean official. His voice was calm. His smile was small. "We are here to protect the public," he said to the cameras. "Recent events have proven that enhanced threats are unpredictable." The crowd murmured. Some cheered. Some looked unsure. On a screen behind him, clips of Cal played. Lift. Break. Fly. Fight. Bastion's voice stayed even. "We will not wait for disaster," he said. "We will prevent it." Jean watched it on the mansion TV and felt sick. "He's making it sound noble," she whispered. Beast's hands clenched. "He's turning us into a product," Hank said. "Selling fear." Storm's face was hard. "He is also inviting us," she said. "He wants us to show up." Logan spat into a cup. Let's disappoint him. Scott stood with arms crossed, eyes locked on the screen. We don't go, he said. Cal stood behind the couch, silent. His gaze was fixed on Bastion like a predator watching another predator. He's lying, Cal said softly. Yes, Scott replied, and he wants a fight. On camera. Cal's eyes narrowed. He's not just doing a speech, Cal said. Listen. Scott tilted his head. Then he heard it too, not with super hearing, with context. A second channel of noise. Sirens. Screams. Not near the square. Somewhere else. John's eyes widened. It's a distraction, she said. Storm's head snapped up. Where? Cal answered instantly. Mutant shelter. West side, he said, and a hospital 2 blocks from it. Scott's chest tightened. Split teams, he ordered, already moving. Storm, Logan, west side. Jean, with me to the hospital. Beast, you stay and upload the evidence now. Xavier. I will coordinate, Xavier said, calm but quick. Cal stepped forward. I can reach both, he said. Scott didn't even look at him. No, Scott said. You go where you're needed most. Cal's jaw clenched. They're using civilians. Scott finally turned. His voice went low and sharp. Exactly, he said. So you don't make it worse by making it about you. Cal's eyes flashed. Then he forced his shoulders to drop. Tell me, Cal said. Scott pointed. Hospital, Scott said. Civilians. Tight spaces. You shield. You don't chase. Cal nodded once. Understood. Logan grinned at Scott as they ran. Look at you, Logan said. Bossing around a god. Scott didn't smile. He's not a god, Scott snapped. He's a person. Logan's grin faded. Yeah, he muttered. That's the scary part. The hospital attack was surgical. Not a full sentinel stomp. Not a loud invasion. Smaller units. Faster. Quiet. Cal arrived above the building and heard it all at once. People screaming in hallways. Machines moving like insects in vents. Guns firing. A child crying on the 3rd floor. He landed on the roof with no boom and punched through the stairwell door. Down the stairs, the air smelled like antiseptic and smoke. Scott ran beside him, visor down. Jean floated slightly above the floor with telekinesis ready, her face tense. In the lobby, a sleek machine stood near the reception desk. It was human-shaped, but wrong. Its movements were too precise. Its head turned smoothly as it scanned faces. A Nimrod-class unit. But this one looked upgraded. Its armor had new panels. Its eyes glowed a calm red. Its chest had a red sun emitter built in. Smaller, tighter, cleaner. It spoke in a voice that sounded almost polite. Target 0, it said. Please remain still. Cal's eyes narrowed. No. The Nimrod unit lifted a hand. Red light pulsed outward like a bubble, filling the lobby. Cal felt the weakness hit him again. He didn't panic. He didn't rage. He adjusted. He stepped backward on purpose, pulling the unit's focus away from the crowded hallway. Scott shouted, "Evacuate the left corridor!" He fired optic blasts down the hall to break ceiling tiles and create a smoke curtain. Cover for civilians, not a weapon. John pushed telekinesis outward and slammed doors shut to protect patients. The Nimrod unit moved with Cal, tracking him with perfect calm. Smaller drones rose from behind it, each carrying small red emitters like nails. Cal's eyes flicked to the drones. It's planning the field, he realized. The drones shot into the walls, sticking like spikes. Red light spread, overlapping. A larger red zone began forming. Cal's chest tightened as the weakness increased. The Nimrod unit spoke again. "Your cooperation will prevent harm," it said. Cal's voice was flat. "You are harm." The Nimrod unit lunged, faster than the earlier sentinels. It hit Cal with a punch that actually moved him, driving him into a pillar. Concrete cracked. Dust fell. Scott's stomach tightened. "Cal!" Cal pushed off the pillar, jaw clenched. Even weakened, he was still stronger than almost anything alive. But the red zone made every movement heavier. It forced him to choose. Cal's eyes snapped to Scott and Jean. "Get them out," he ordered, voice tight. Scott fired a blast at a drone, breaking it. Jean grabbed 3 drones with telekinesis and crushed them together like a ball of scrap. But Jean winced. The anti-telepath pulses were there too, woven into the drones. Her mind felt like it was being squeezed. Cal stepped forward into the red zone anyway. He didn't punch the Nimrod unit in the face. He grabbed its wrist and twisted. Metal shrieked. The Nimrod unit's other hand transformed into a blade. Cal leaned back, letting it slice air, then slammed his elbow into the unit's shoulder joint. The joint cracked. The Nimrod unit didn't scream. It didn't rage. It spoke. Calm. Escalation approved. The drones in the walls pulsed together. The red zone tightened. Cal's knees bent slightly under the sudden weakness. Scott saw it and made a choice. He ran straight at the Nimrod unit, firing a narrow blast at its chest, not to destroy it, but to force it to raise its guard. John pushed with telekinesis, shoving the unit's feet off balance. Cal used the opening. He grabbed the unit's head with both hands. He could have twisted and ripped it clean off. He didn't. Instead, he surged upward with a burst of strength and slammed the unit's head into the ceiling hard enough to crack the panels and knock loose the drones embedded there. 2 drones fell free. Their red emitters broke. The red zone flickered. Cal grabbed that flicker like a lifeline and moved fast. He shot heat vision in a thin line, slicing the drone spikes out of the walls like cutting nails from wood. Each slice was precise. No fire spread, no patients burned, no oxygen lines exploded. The red zone shrank with every drone he removed. The Nimrod unit recovered quickly and struck again, trying to pin Cal down before he could remove more spikes. Cal took the hit on his forearm. He slid across the floor and stopped himself with a boot scrape. He looked at the unit. He looked at the hallway where people were still trapped behind a jammed door. He made the choice that showed who he was becoming here. He didn't chase the unit. He flew, weak but still fast, through the half-open hallway and ripped the jammed door free, clearing a path for nurses and patients to run. "Go," he said, voice firm. A nurse stared at him, shaking. "Who are you?" Cal hesitated. A name rose in his throat, one that meant symbol, hope, promise. But that symbol was poisoned here, unknown, dangerous. He gave her the only truth that mattered. "Someone who won't let it hurt you," he said. Then the Nimrod unit threw itself after him, angry now, voice still calm. "Your protection is inefficient," it said. Cal turned and caught it mid-lunge. He slammed it into the floor, hard enough to crack tiles, then pinned it with one hand. With the other, he ripped the red emitter from its chest. The Nimrod unit's body convulsed. The red field died instantly. Strength rushed back into Cal like air into lungs. Cal's eyes hardened. He looked at Scott. Scott's voice was urgent. "Cal, no killing!" Cal's jaw clenched. He didn't kill it. He did something else. He flew the Nimrod unit up through the roof like a rocket, carrying it away from civilians, away from cameras as much as he could. They burst into open sky. The Nimrod unit struggled and transformed, trying to slice, trying to escape. Cal held it tight. He spoke into its face, voice like steel. "You do not get to use people as bait," Cal said. The unit's voice stayed calm. Observation complete. A hidden core inside it flashed. Cal realized too late. It wasn't here to win. It was here to record Cal's restraint, to measure how far he would go before he broke. The core shot out like a bullet of light and vanished into the clouds. Cal roared, one short sound, raw, frustrated, and crushed the unit's body into scrap. Metal fell like rain into an empty construction lot by the river. Cal hovered in the air, breathing hard. He looked down at the city. He could hear Storm and Logan fighting across town. He could hear the shelter screaming. He could hear cameras turning. He could hear Bastion's speech still playing on screens. He felt trapped again. Not by red light, by a world that wanted him to be a monster. He flew back to the mansion in silence. Storm and Logan returned near midnight. Storm's hair was damp. Her face was hard. They hit the shelter with legal teams and drones, she said. They wanted footage of us fighting. Logan threw a broken drone onto the table. They also wanted a kid to get hurt, he snarled, so they could blame us. Beast looked up from his laptop. Dark circles were under his eyes. I uploaded everything, he said. The cages, the names, the documents. Scott's shoulders sagged. And? Beast's voice was bitter. Some people believe it. Some people don't. Some people say it proves we're dangerous because we broke in. Jean sat down slowly, exhausted. Fear doesn't need proof, she whispered. Fear just needs a story. Cal stood by the doorway again, quiet. Xavier rolled toward him. Cal, he said gently. You removed the Nimrod unit without killing it. Cal's jaw tightened. It escaped, he said. It did, Xavier agreed, but you did not cross your own line. Cal stared at the floor. My line isn't the problem, he said. Their line is. Xavier nodded. Yes, he said, and that is why we do not become them. Cal's eyes lifted, sharp. What do you want from me? He asked. Xavier didn't flinch. I want you to choose, he said. Cal's gaze narrowed. Choose what? Xavier's voice stayed calm, but the question was heavy. Choose whether you will be a weapon, Xavier said, or a guardian. Cal's mouth tightened. I've been both. And which one are you now? Xavier asked. Cal didn't answer right away. Scott watched him, heart pounding. Cal finally spoke, voice low. I don't want to rule, Cal said. I don't want a throne. I don't want obedience. Storm's eyes softened slightly. Cal continued. I want fewer funerals. Logan snorted. Same, he muttered. Cal looked at Xavier. But your way feels like waiting. Xavier's voice was gentle. It is not waiting, he said. It is choosing restraint, even when you have the power to do more. Cal's eyes flicked to Scott. And if restraint fails? Scott stepped forward. Then we still don't become killers, Scott said. We adapt. We get smarter. We use teams. We protect. We survive. Cal stared at Scott for a long moment. Then slowly, he nodded. Fine, Cal said. But this time the words sounded different. Less forced. More chosen. I will stay, Cal said, as long as I can help protect your people. Storm let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. Xavier's smile was small. Then you will stay as a member of this family, he said. Not as a king. Cal's eyes lowered. I don't know how to be in a family, he admitted. John's voice was soft. Then you learn, she said. Beast cleared his throat and slid something across the table toward Cal. A visitor badge. A real one this time. Laminated, with a blank name line. Cal stared at it like it was a joke. Logan grinned. Congrats, he said. You're official. Cal looked at Beast. This is serious? He asked. Beast nodded solemnly. Very, Hank said. If you're going to be here, you have to be on the roster, and you have to attend debriefs. Cal picked up the badge carefully. What do I write? He asked. Scott hesitated, because the truth was a shockwave. A name that would pull every camera, every government office, every villain's attention like a magnet. Cal looked up, reading the hesitation. You don't know it, he said quietly. Scott shook his head. Not yet, Scott said, and that's safer. Cal nodded once. He wrote a single word. Cal. He clipped the badge to his suit. Logan laughed. Man's got a badge, he said. World's doomed. Cal's mouth twitched. It was the closest thing to a real smile Scott had seen from him. But outside, the world didn't laugh. Outside, the machines kept humming. And somewhere, in a red-lit lab, Mr. Sinister held a tiny vial and smiled like a man holding the future. Weeks passed. The mansion's routine became a kind of training for Cal's soul. He trained in the danger room with strict limits. Scott made him run drills where he had to let teammates finish fights instead of ending everything in 1 second. Cal hated it at first. He would stop himself mid-move, fists clenched, hearing civilians in the simulation scream. His body wanted to end it instantly. Scott would call, "Hold!" and Cal would freeze, breathing hard, like restraint was a muscle that burned. Storm took him on quiet patrols, not to fight, to listen, to help rebuild small things without being seen. A broken roof, a collapsed wall, a washed-out bridge support. Cal learned to move like a secret, not a headline. John sat with him in the quiet room once a week. She didn't read him without permission. She simply talked. Sometimes Cal spoke, sometimes he didn't. Sometimes he only stared at the floor and said one sentence. "I hear them," he would say. "I can't turn it off." Jean would nod. "I know," she would say, "but you can choose what you do with it." Beast kept handing him forms. Cal kept signing them with a look like he was sacrificing pride. The running gag became real. One day, Logan watched Cal sign a damage report after the danger room. "Look at you," Logan said, grinning. "Paperwork warrior." Cal didn't look up. "I hate this," he muttered. Logan's grin widened. "Good," he said. "Means you're still human." Cal paused at that. He wasn't human, but he understood the point. Then came the offer. It wasn't Magneto this time. It wasn't a speech on a lawn. It was a private message that arrived on a secure channel Beast didn't recognize. It appeared on a screen in the war room late at night when the mansion was quiet. A simple file. A single line. "I can give you back what you lost." Cal stood in front of the screen alone, staring. He knew it was bait. He knew it was a trap. And still, his chest tightened like someone grabbed his heart. A second line appeared. One conversation. No cameras. No games. Cal's hands clenched. He heard Lois's laugh in his memory like it was yesterday. He turned and walked down the hall to Xavier's office. Xavier was awake. He always seemed awake when people needed him. Cal stood in the doorway, holding the badge on his chest like it was a reminder of who he was trying to be. "I got a message," Cal said. Xavier nodded. "From Sinister," he said. Calm. It wasn't a guess. It was a truth. Cal's eyes narrowed. "You knew." Xavier's voice stayed gentle. "I feared," he corrected. "There is a difference." Cal swallowed. "He says he can give me back what I lost," Cal said. Xavier watched him quietly. "And do you believe him?" Xavier asked. Cal's jaw clenched. "No," he said. Then, honest and smaller, "But I want to." Xavier nodded slowly, like he respected the honesty. "That is why he is dangerous," Xavier said. "He doesn't need to beat you. He only needs to tempt you." Cal stared at the floor. "If I meet him," Cal said, "I might—" "You might cross a line," Xavier finished softly. Cal looked up. "So what do I do?" Xavier's voice was simple. "You do not go alone," he said. "And you do not go for what he offers. You go for what you value." Cal's eyes narrowed. "And what do I value?" Xavier didn't answer for him. He only said, "Choose." Cal stood there for a long moment. Then he made the choice that surprised even him. "I want to warn the team," Cal said. "I want to do this the right way." Xavier's smile was small. "Then you are already doing it," he said. The next confrontation came in the daylight again. Not because the X-Men chose it, because Bastion chose it. A convoy moved through Manhattan with police escort, trucks carrying red sun emitters, Sentinel parts, a Nimrod unit standing upright in the center truck bed like a statue. The official reason was transport. The real reason was challenge. Every drone in the sky followed it. Scott watched the live map in the Blackbird. "He's baiting us," Scott said. Storm's voice was cold. "He's baiting the public," she replied. Beast adjusted his glasses, eyes sharp. "And he's showing force," he said. He wants people to feel safe behind machines. John's hands tightened in her lap. I can feel the crowd gathering, she whispered. They're scared and excited. Cal stood near the ramp, staring at the city below. His hearing picked up everything. The cheers, the insults, the fear, the hate. He heard one man shout, "Get the mutants!" like it was sport. He heard another shout, "Target 0," like it was a curse. Cal's eyes tightened. Scott turned to him. "We stick to the plan," Scott said. "We don't show up as a fight." Cal nodded once. "We protect," Cal said. Scott blinked at that. It sounded like learning. They dropped in 2 blocks away, out of sight. Scott led the team along rooftops. Storm guided wind to keep smoke from street grills from showing their movement. Logan moved like a shadow. Jean's head throbbed, but she stayed focused. They reached a rooftop above the convoy road. Scott peered down. The trucks were surrounded by armed units and cameras. The crowd was held back by barricades. Signs waved. Some said, "Thank you, Sentinels." Some said, "Mutant rights." In the center truck, the Nimrod unit stood with its head slightly tilted, scanning like it was bored. Bastion walked beside the convoy, smiling at cameras. Scott's teeth clenched. "He's daring us." Cal's voice was low. "He's daring me," he corrected. Scott's hand lifted. "We don't play his game," Scott said. "We—" A scream cut the air. Not from the crowd. From inside one of the trucks. John's eyes widened. "There's someone in there," she whispered. Beast's face tightened. He zoomed the camera feed. "They have a prisoner," he said. "They're transporting a mutant as a proof of threat." Storm's jaw clenched. "He's using a living person as a prop." Cal's eyes went hard. Scott grabbed his arm. "Cal." Cal didn't pull away. He looked at Scott, and Scott saw it. The fight inside him. Then Cal spoke, controlled. "Tell me what to do," Cal said. Scott's throat tightened. He pointed. "You go straight down," Scott said. "You get the prisoner out. You take them away. You do not touch Bastion. You do not destroy the trucks unless you have to. You do not chase Nimrod into the crowd." Cal nodded. "Understood," he said. Then he dropped. Not like a missile, like a controlled fall. Silent. Fast. He landed behind the convoy, in a narrow alley, out of camera sight. He moved low and fast, like he had learned. He reached the back of the truck and tore the lock free without making a loud sound. Inside, a teenage mutant girl stared up at him, eyes wide, wrists cuffed. Cal knelt, voice low. "I'm getting you out," he said. She swallowed. "Are you the monster?" she whispered. Cal froze for half a second. Then he answered. Simple. "No," he said. "I'm trying not to be." He snapped the cuffs with careful pressure and lifted her gently. He turned to leave, and the Nimrod unit's voice boomed from outside. "Target 0 located." So much for quiet. Red lights snapped on all over the convoy. Drones dipped. Cameras swung. The crowd roared. Scott swore. He had sensors on the locks. Scott hissed. Storm's eyes narrowed. He wanted this exact moment. Cal stepped out of the truck with the girl in his arms. Every camera caught it. Bastion smiled like Christmas came early. "There he is," Bastion said into a microphone, voice calm. The unpredictable threat. Cal ignored him and looked for a clear path. Then the Nimrod unit moved. It didn't charge Cal. It charged the crowd barrier, straight at people. Cal's eyes widened. "No!" The Nimrod unit punched the barrier and sent people tumbling. Panic exploded. People screamed and ran. Bastion didn't flinch. He only watched the fear he created. Scott's voice snapped in Cal's comm. "Cal, civilian priority." Cal didn't need the reminder. He flew upward with the girl, placing her on a rooftop behind Scott in half a second. Then he dropped back into the street, between the Nimrod unit and the crowd. Storm surged down with a wall of wind, pushing civilians back from the chaos. Logan leaped onto a truck and began shredding drones. John focused and grabbed panic in the crowd, not reading, not invading, just pushing calm like a blanket over the worst of it. It hurt. But she did it. Scott fired optic blasts to carve a safe path through debris, guiding people away. The Nimrod unit activated its red sun field. The street filled with tight red light. Cal's shoulders tensed as weakness hit. But he didn't fall. He stepped forward anyway. The Nimrod unit spoke, calm. "Your restraint has been measured." Cal's jaw clenched. "Then measure this," he said. He didn't punch. He moved like a chess player. He grabbed a falling streetlight pole and used it as a lever, sweeping drones out of the air. He smashed red emitter spikes planted in the asphalt with precise stomps, breaking their overlap zones. Storm blasted lightning into the truck's emitter crates, forcing them to shut down without exploding. Beast, from the rooftop, triggered an EMP pulse device he had prepared. It knocked out half the drones for 10 seconds. Just long enough. John used telekinesis to rip the microphone from Bastion's hand and fling it into a fountain. Bastion's smile faded for the first time. The Nimrod unit lunged at Cal in the weakened red zone, fist aimed for Cal's head. Cal caught it. Even weakened, he caught it. He twisted, slammed the Nimrod unit into the street, and pinned it. He reached for its chest emitter. The crowd screamed as cameras zoomed in. This was the moment Bastion wanted. The moment Cal either killed it or lost. Scott's voice cut into Cal's ear, sharp. "Cal, don't!" Cal's hands hovered for half a second over the emitter. He could rip it out and crush it. He could end the red field. He could also tear the unit's head off and end it forever. The old path whispered in his mind. End it. No more. Cal looked at the crowd. He saw faces. Not enemies. People. Fearful people being used like tools. He made his choice. He ripped the emitter out and crushed it. He did not kill the unit. The red light died. Strength surged back into him. Cal grabbed the Nimrod unit by the torso and flew straight up into the sky, away from the crowd, away from the street, away from cameras as much as he could. But the drones followed. They always did. Up in the clouds, the Nimrod unit struggled, trying to shift into weapons. Cal held it tight. "You're not a person," Cal said, "so I won't treat you like one." He flew it toward the ocean. Far from ships, far from beaches. He slammed it down into the water with controlled force, like dropping a heavy metal box into a deep pit. The unit sank fast. Cal hovered above the waves, breathing hard. He listened. He heard the unit still moving underwater for a few seconds. Then it went still. Not dead forever, but contained. Cal's eyes narrowed. Containment. A word he hated. But sometimes it was the only option that didn't turn you into a murderer. He flew back toward the city. When he arrived, Storm's wind walls had calmed the crowd. Scott and Jean were guiding people towards safety. Beast was already pulling drone footage from the air with hacking tools. Bastion stood near a broken barricade, coat spotless, eyes cold. Cal landed in front of him. Cameras rushed closer. Scott shouted, "Cal, don't!" Cal didn't touch Bastion. He didn't threaten him. He only stared at him with a look that made even Bastion's smile flicker. "You used people," Cal said, voice low. "You used fear." Bastion's voice was smooth. "I used reality," he replied. "You are reality now. A threat beyond the law." Cal's jaw tightened. "Then change the law," Cal said. "Not the truth." Bastion smiled again, thin. "You can't change truth," he said. "But you can prove me right." Cal looked at him for a long moment. Then he stepped back. He turned away first. That, more than any punch, broke Bastion's performance. Because the monster didn't act like a monster. And that made the story harder to sell. Scott grabbed Cal's shoulder as they retreated. "You did it," Scott said, voice tight. "You didn't kill. You didn't." Cal's eyes stayed fixed on the crowd. "They'll still hate us," he said. Scott nodded. "Yes," he said. "But you didn't give them a reason to fear you more." Cal's voice was quiet. I did something worse, he said. Scott frowned. What? Cal answered without looking away. I stayed, he said. I chose this world. Scott didn't know what to say to that, so he simply nodded, and they disappeared into the sky with Storm's wind hiding their exit. Not perfect, not clean, but alive. That night, the mansion felt different. Not safe, not calm, but steadier. Cal sat in the kitchen at a table that looked too small for him. The visitor badge still clipped to his suit. The word Cal printed on it like a compromise. A plate of food sat in front of him. He didn't touch it. Storm poured tea, calm hands, quiet strength. Logan leaned on the counter, watching like a guard dog that might also be family. Beast walked in with his laptop, eyes wide. We pulled Bastion's feeds, Hank said. He tried to cut the footage again, but we have angles. Scott entered last with Jean. John looked exhausted, but her face was peaceful in a tired way. Xavier rolled in behind them, gentle presence filling the room. They were all together, not as a team posing for a camera, as people trying to survive the next day. Cal stared at the plate and finally spoke. In my world, he said quietly, I stopped trusting people to choose better. No one interrupted him. Cal continued, voice flat but honest. I decided I would choose for them, because I thought that was mercy. Storm's eyes softened. And was it? She asked. Cal's jaw tightened. Sometimes, he admitted, and sometimes it was control. Scott nodded slowly. Control always starts with a good reason, Scott said. That's why it's dangerous. Cal looked up at Scott. Today, I wanted to tear Bastion apart, Cal said, simple. I wanted to end him. Logan grunted. Fair. Cal's eyes flicked to Logan. And I didn't, Cal said. Jean's voice was soft. Because you chose people over rage, she said. Cal's throat moved. Because you told me not to, he corrected. Scott shook his head. No, Scott said. I told you, but you chose to listen. Cal stared at his hands again. I don't like listening, he admitted. Beast smiled faintly. No, Hank said. You don't. Logan chuckled. He's learning, he muttered. Cal looked toward Xavier. What happens now? Cal asked. Xavier's voice was gentle. Now we keep going, he said. We protect. We expose. We build hope. Cal's eyes narrowed. And if they keep building cages? Cal asked. Xavier didn't lie. They will, he said. For a while. Cal's jaw tightened. Then I stay, Cal said, voice steady. Storm lifted her chin. As a guardian, she said. Cal nodded. As a guardian, he repeated. Logan tossed him a small object. Cal caught it without thinking. It was a pen. Cal frowned. Why? Logan jerked his chin at the table. Beast left a damage report. Logan said, You owe us a signature. Beast coughed. Technically, you caused structural stress to a public barricade, Hank said, trying to sound serious. Cal stared at them. Then, slowly, he shook his head, like he couldn't believe this was his life now. He signed the form. The room laughed. Even Jean. Even Storm. Cal's mouth twitched again, a real hint of a smile. Not because it was funny, because it was normal. A small, normal thing in a world that kept trying to be cruel. In the weeks that followed, stories spread anyway. Some people called him Target Zero. Some people called him the Mutant King. Some people called him a demon. But a different story also spread in quieter places. A rumor of a man in a cape who rebuilt roofs at night. A rumor of a red blur that stopped a raid without breaking bones. A rumor of a giant who carried children out of a burning building and left without asking for thanks. Cal didn't seek cameras. He avoided them. He trained. He patrolled. He listened to Scott's plans. He obeyed Storm when she told him to step back. He asked Jean sometimes, Is it okay if I ask you something? Like permission was becoming a habit. He still heard the world. He still heard machines being built. He still heard fear. But he learned to hear something else too. Hope. Not loud hope. Small hope. A kid laughing again. A family eating dinner without hiding. A mutant teen walking outside without flinching at every siren. One quiet night, Cal stood on the mansion's back porch alone. The sky was clear, stars sharp. Xavier rolled out beside him without making a sound. Cal didn't turn. He already knew he was there. Xavier's voice was gentle. "You're still awake," he said. Cal's answer was simple. "I'm always awake," he said. Xavier nodded. "I know," he replied. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Cal spoke. Quiet. "A kid asked me today if I was going to make everyone behave," he said. Xavier's brow softened. "And what did you say?" Cal's throat moved. "I said no," he said. "I said I'd help people choose better." Xavier smiled softly. "That is not an easy answer," he said. Cal finally turned his head slightly. "It's not," he admitted. "Sometimes it feels weak." Xavier's voice stayed calm. "Restraint is not weakness," he said. "It is strength with a conscience." Cal stared out at the dark trees. "My world taught me that conscience gets people killed," he said. Xavier nodded slowly. "And this world will try to teach you that too," he said. "Every day." Cal's hands tightened on the porch railing, then slowly relaxed. "I'm staying anyway," Cal said. Xavier's smile grew just a little. "Yes," he said. "You are." Cal looked up at the sky. He listened. Sirens far away. A fight somewhere in the city. A lonely person crying in an apartment. A couple arguing. A child laughing. A train running. A dog barking. Life. Messy. Loud. Free. Cal breathed in. He didn't like how fragile it sounded, but he liked that it still sounded alive. He spoke, barely louder than the night. "I can't fix this world," Cal said. Xavier's voice was soft. "No," he agreed. Cal's eyes narrowed, but not in anger, in focus. "But I can stand here," Cal said, "and keep it from breaking today." Xavier nodded. "That is enough," he said. Cal clipped his visitor badge tighter to his suit, as if it mattered. Then he looked out at the city again, not like a king looking at territory, but like a guardian looking at a promise. And he stayed.